The WeatherTech SportsCar Championship on IMSA Radio.
Hello everybody and happy Sunday. Beautiful weather, great surroundings and ready to get going for a 2-hour and 40-minute contest as we head towards the clutch part of the 2023 season for the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. John Hindhaugh and Jeremy Shaw in the booth, cheer Adam down on pit lane as we are ready to unleash one of my favourite events of the year. We are turning the spotlight on the GT categories. We're in beautiful Virginia, just over the county line from North Carolina, and the state line, from North Carolina at Danville. And it is a 17-corner circuit for 3.27 miles. Hasn't really changed since it was cut out of the scenery a few years ago. Turn 1, certainly a place that you can pass, as is the entry to turn 12. But really, everywhere needs to be watched here. Welcome along, everybody. 19 cars taking the start, mixed between the GTDs, which form the majority at 14 cars. They have to have a particular lineup of drivers that only includes one pro driver, and then 5 GTD pros where the lineups are absolutely free. However, they line up as they qualified, and that means 2 GTD Pro runners are in 10th and 11th position. The Pfaff Motorsport Porsche, which will be started by Patrick Pilet, and Ross Gunn in the heart of racing, Aston Martin. But at the front of the field, it is 3 of those pro cars. The front of the grid is a Lexus RCF GT. It'll be Jack Hawksworth that starts the number 14 car. All the pro cars have red backgrounds to their numbers. Daniel Hunkadea in the literally Phoenix from the Flames WeatherTech Racing Mercedes AMG. The white, red and blue number 79 car was engulfed in a very nasty looking fire in the pit lane on Friday. The crew have worked hard to bring that car back to a pristine condition to get it into qualifying yesterday, and Daniel Hunkadea slapped it on the sharp end of the grid. Starts from the front row. Row 2, Antonio Garcia for Corvette Racing. Last time we'll see that C8R here in GTE form. Remember, it's been sort of backwards engineered down to a GT3 sort of specification. Next year it is the purpose-built Corvette C8R in the GTD category. Madison Snow is on pole position for GTD and will sit on the outside of the second row. Our Porsche keys to the race. A little bit of patience required at certain parts of the track. Hard to ask racing drivers sometimes to do that. But Jeremy Shaw staying out of the pits for additional run through. Any penalties, that's a bit of a no-no. And track position, fuel and tyres. Pick any one of those that you think might be more important.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. But interestingly, there's 6 teams that have elected to change tyres before the race. Most of them were starting towards the back in any case, in actual fact. I mean, the highest place the car qualified 12th on the grid. Yeah, they're obviously not too worried about it because they've gone even farther back than they might have been otherwise. Yeah, track position is important because it is difficult to pass. And you've got to be really incisive to make a pass because the quality of the teams and the drivers and the closeness in technical specs of the cars means that getting past somebody else isn't as easy as it sounds.
Shea Adam is down on the pit lane for us. Before anybody asks on at IMSA Radio, Shea, update us A on the weather, B on the driver times, and C on a couple of other little housekeeping items.
Hot for the temperature to start. We've got a drive time of 40-minute minimum for GTD, 10 minutes for the pro category. And one thing to keep an eye on, we averaged 5.3 laps of caution during this VIR contest, the Michelin GT Challenge. A couple of times we've gone all green, so it is a possibility that we stay green. Hopefully we do, but if we do go yellow, the car leading the race determines which class gets to come in first. So if a GTD car is out front, all the GTD cars get a chance to come into the pit lane first.
One or two threatening clouds off to the north and west. I don't mean that it's little white fluffy clouds with flick knives. They are quite dark, actually, but we'll keep an eye on that. For the moment, the sun is out, the track temperature is good. Michelin tyres are having to deal with 104 Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. That's all right, but they will have had to set their starting temperature, pressures rather, a little while ago. 2 hours and 40 minutes on the clock, a mixed grid of 19 GTDs. It's Babenda waving the green flag for the Michelin GT challenge at VIR. They charge down towards the horseshoe for the first time. Too wide and about 5 or 6 rows deep. Maybe actually the full field still holding on to their grid positions as they go through. Jack Hawksworth gets a good run in that bright yellow number 14 Vassar Sullivan Lexus, with in second position Daniel Hunkadea, who is relishing his time in the States, loving these tracks. Antonio Garcia for Corvette slots into third. Fourth position, that is still the BMW of Madison Snow. I had to pause there for a moment because I couldn't actually see Madison's car behind Antonio Garcia's Corvette. They were so close together. Then there's a wee bit of a gap before the next GTD car, which is the second of the Vassar Sullivan cars. Jeremy took me to task for calling them works cars early in the weekend. Work supported cars then in that case. I think it's fair to say as they are effectively, there's a big chunk of cash going in there from Lexus, and they are run as yes, a satellite team, sort of customer team, and that's there's two, one in each of the two categories. Then it is the Lamborghini Huracan of Loris Spinelli, who has shown pace himself and that car this weekend in the Lamborghini. I'm not counting that out. They've sort of just been rather stealthy, not making a big noise about anything, which is ironic. I've just said that, Jeremy, given that that's a V10, 5 and a bit litre, normally aspirated car. It's got a great noise to it, but they've just gone about their business rather well in that 78 Lamborghini.
They have. They've been kind of bubbling underneath the radar screen all season long, haven't they? And the cars frequently shown really, really good pace. And certainly with Loris Spinelli started the car rather than Goldberg. That's an interesting strategy by that team. Also, the same for Aaron Tielitz. It's generally Frankie Montecalvo that starts at number 12 Lexus. It's running in second place in GTD right now behind Madison Snow. But Frankie was feeling a little bit under the weather on Friday. A bit better yesterday, but didn't feel well enough to qualify. Much better today, though. So Frankie will drive the middle stint in that number 12 car during this race. It's interesting to watch Madison Snow right at the start, trying to make a move and split up those 3 GTD Pro cars at the front. Antonio Garcia was having none of that, however, so Madison had to tuck it back in there in 4th position.
If you're on the world feed or you're listening on Sirius XM 207 or on IMSA Radio, it is at IMSA Radio on the platform formerly known as Twitter. Get in touch with us if you spot anything or you want to ask any questions. We've got just under 2 hours and 40 minutes to come, and we can now revel in this field of GT cars as they head down the back straight towards the top of the hill, which is called, rather appropriately enough, the roller coaster. 14 is the right-hander that leads down to the left at 15, the left at 16A, and then the hog pen at turn 17, which is where the leaders are coming to now, which is a corner that looks really simple on paper. You think, oh, that just leads onto the front straight. Yeah, you don't drive it on paper, Jeremy. Get offline there, and the camber at the very outside of the corner actually leads away from the corner and just pushes you out onto the grass. And we've seen in the past, haven't we, when it's been damp out there, drivers really struggling to get back onto the front straight.
Yeah, true that, and the front straight isn't straight either, is it? There's at least 3 kinks on that straight before we get down to turn 1, and then turn 1 is sort of a triple apex right-hander, really, really tricky there with you're having to run right along the edge left-hand side of the track for the right-hander and carrying the brakes all the way around there as well, into a goodly portion around that corner as well. So, yes, a really tricky circuit here. Great first couple of laps there for Jack Hawksworth in that pole-winning Lexus. He's pulled out already a second and a half over the Spaniard in the WeatherTech Mercedes in second place.
It's potentially, not that important to try and make a break here. Although I would say that in the past, the incidents of using, having to use the safety car and a full course yellow to neutralise the race here have been fairly low, Jeremy. There's lots of runoff, and if it stays dry, most people, if they do go off, can drive back to somewhere near the pavement. There's also, because of the nature of the circuit, and particularly that Patriot circuit, which is in the middle of the track between the climbing S's and the back straight, there's a couple of cutouts either side there that you can get into. So a savvy driver and a bit of luck and a fair wind, if you do have a problem, it doesn't necessarily mean you stop out on track and need to be recovered.
True that, and Antonio Garcia got fed up with following the WeatherTech Mercedes after just a couple of laps. He's made a move on that roller coaster section, or into the roller coaster section. Up into second position now is Antonio Garcia, and during that lap has just reset the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 46.892 for the Spaniard. The lap record, by the way, is a 45.455. That was set last year by Jordan Taylor in that same car. So 146.8 on the just a second flying lap for Antonio Garcia, who tries to close that gap to the leading Lexus.
Just to pick up on something we were talking about earlier, the drive time minimum is 45 minutes today, 45 minutes, and the 6 teams that changed their tyres didn't actually go back to the grid. The grid was amended, apparently. Not sure what the difference on that is, but that's just come through from our colleagues at IMSA, so thank you for that. So go ahead, Jeremy.
So what do you mean there? I mean, they did go to the back of the grid. They just in the order in which they made the announcement to race control that they were going to be changing tyres.
No, they
did go to the back of the grid, but it's not in the order in which they qualified, but in the order in which they made the announcement that they were changing tyres.
Well, that's not what IMSA's just said, Jeremy. That's my point. They said that they held. I think, Shea, that's correct, isn't it? They held their grid position, but it was an amendment because I guess the 6 of them did it. They just amended the grid. How did that work?
The 6 of them that did it were all bronze-rated drivers who qualified the car. Therefore, by the rules, they were allowed to change their starting tires to new ones from qualifying. So there was no penalty issued. The one that had been issued earlier on the grid was incorrect because it gave penalties to all the cars with bronze-rated drivers already. So that's where the issue came. I've just been checking in with some of our GTD Pro teams. I've checked in with 4 out of 5 of them based on minimum drive time, because only having to hit that 10-minute mark means that they've got a wide-open playbook for how they use their drivers. Several of them are thinking, all right, well, if it stays green, we'll split this simply 50-50 for each of the drivers. Others are saying, we're going to see how the rhythm plays out, but we would rather have a fresh finishing driver than somebody halfway through.
Yeah, well, let's keep an eye on that. Thank you, Shea. 2.5 hours still to go. And Jack Hawksworth has pulled out a handy 1.6 seconds later. We've got a full course caution already. Pits are closed. Oh, it's the Kelly Moss Racing number 92 car, David Brulé. And he has demolished both ends of the normally immaculate number 92 Porsche, and is stranded in the centre of the circuit. This is at turn 6 through the climbing S's. It's really quick through there, and it's a rhythm part of the circuit, and seems to have caught David out just as he's gone underneath the bridge. In fact, he's pretty much right underneath the bridge area. Well, that is not the start they wanted at all, not the start anybody wants. And that is going to take a wee while to clear up. In fact, he didn't even get to the bridge. So actually that's between just out of turn 5 before he's really got to turn 6A. And he's hit the wall hard on the right-hand side. the AMG safety crew already on the scene, and oh, David, that's a big hit on driver's right. He's lost the car and in it went. Very odd looking accident there, Jeremy, but one thing we will say is these cars look like the type of vehicles you could go down to your local Lexus, Chevrolet, Mercedes, BMW, Aston Martin, Porsche, McLaren or Acura dealer to. However, these cars are built by the factories as racing cars. They never started off as a street car, so they have all of the safety equipment in. And let's hope that David's okay. And I think I can see him out of the car. We'll check that for you and check with the team. Well, that is a heavy impact for David Bruley and the Kelly Moss Racing with Riley number 92 car.
Yeah, just lost it coming out of that, I guess it's turn 6, isn't it, off the sort of second of the right-handers after the NASCAR turn there. And the heavy impact there with the tyre barrier, that's going to be quite a clean-up because they're going to need to get more tyre barriers in place there. And already the circuit vehicles there are in place with some new tyre barriers right in front of that marshal's post as well.
Yeah.
Now, that was a heavy impact, so I think he did get out of the car already, didn't he, David?
Correct.
So that's certainly good news.
Yeah, that confirmed from our colleagues trackside. And thank you to our camera operators, as always, feeding back even more information than they see through their new viewfinders. Every single one of them, race fans, best in the biz. And thank them. And of course, our safety crew, track services, and all of the marshals, indeed all of the volunteers at VIR this weekend. We simply cannot go racing without the highly professional services provided by all of those volunteers who give their most precious gift to us, the gift of their time. Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Shea Adam down in the pit lane, and I think even better news than just that David was out. The team have spoken to him.
Yeah, the team was able to talk to him and confirm that he was okay. He got out of the car on his own. He will have to go to the medical center, of course, but that means that Kelly Moss, with only one bullet in the gun remaining, that would be the number 91 Porsche.
That's very sad for them. The good news is David gave the thumbs up and spoke to the team before he vacated the car on the Pits to Car radio. So an early break in proceedings, Jeremy. Now, this gives us the opportunity. We talked about our Porsche keys to the race. A little bit of patience required, tyres, fuel, track position, staying out of the penalty box and using the strategy wisely. Again, it's a question that we answer pretty much every time we're on the radio and the World Feed TV. What is the likely pit stop strategy here? 2 hours and 40 minutes for the GTDs. These are GT3 cars. 2/3 stops?
Yeah, 2 stops should be no problem. They're fairly wide windows because these cars run around about an hour, so around about an hour and 40 minutes. So it gives you 20 minutes of kind of wiggle room there at some stage during the race. And I think it's going to be interesting to see who runs either shortest, come in and then get to the end on just one more stop from that, or runs longer and runs a shorter final stint. So there's lots of strategic options out there. And this caution, I don't think, well, I mean, we might see a couple of people coming in to top off with fuel before we go back to green. Oh no, the pits won't be open, were they? Because we haven't done 15 minutes in the race yet, so there shouldn't be any pit stops now, and it'll just extend the opening stint a little bit more.
That's Jeremy Shaw alongside me, John Hindhaugh. Shea Adam is down in the pit lane. I want to check in with you, and you've got a better view than any of us as to how the clouds are gathering. I don't want to be at all a bringer of doom here. I'm quite the other way. When people say, oh, there's a 25% chance of rain, I always say, well, there's a 75% chance it will stay dry. How's it looking there at the moment, and how is this likely to affect how the teams plan for the next 2 hours and 25 minutes.
Can I go into ostrich mode and just ignore all the clouds that are around, please? Because right now,
I like
beautiful,
that.
sunny. Yeah, it's really nice out, actually. Very windy. The wind is blowing from across the front straight, across the pit lane, so that's nice. And I think all the weather is kind of to the northwest of us. There is some pretty nasty clouds to the southwest, but if I look where I want to look, it's a beautiful day.
I like that, Shea. Can we keep that up, please? Very good. So behind the safety car, that means obviously no overtaking, and Jerry was mentioning that they won't open the pit lane. So the reason that you haven't seen people diving into the pit lane, Jeremy, is generally speaking, it's the 15-minute rule, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. 15 minutes from the start of the race, or 15 minutes after the previous caution period when it's a short yellow.
And there'll be no pass around, not required. And right now, the field is, as it was at the start, is considered, and through qualifying, is considered a single category. Russell Ward behind the wheel of the number 57, sitting in 7th in GTD. That's 12th overall. It has not been a banner season for Winward in either their GT3 or their GT4, GTD or GT4 GS programme. Thought they had a win last time out for Russell's dad, Bryce, but that was taken away in post-race tech. And this is a team, Jeremy, who have made huge strides in the last few years, but it might be that 2023 is one of those years that they just want to put those result sheets to one side and file them away and restart again next year.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can't win all the time, can you, in this business in particular? So to take the rough with the smooth, and yeah, gosh, I mean, everything that can go wrong has gone wrong, it seems, here for that team. But look, they're still competitive. They've got a bit of a balanced performance break coming into this event. We should give them a little bit of impetus as well. Certainly the other Mercedes qualified reasonably well. Russell didn't have his best qualifying run, I think, yesterday, but look, he was only 0.3 of a second behind Mike Skeen, so that's not too bad, because Mike Skeen's got a lot of experience here, particularly at VIR. So, they're still in the game, and they'll be pushing hard for a good result here this afternoon.
Hello to Blur Fiend, Porsche technician extraordinaire. He's got his FAF T-shirt on, the plaid Porsche, following the number 9 car this weekend with Patrick Pilet. Really shown a huge amount of pace this weekend, but they did win the pit stop demonstration earlier on. That might bode well for them turning around the car a couple of times later on. Also to the brilliantly monikered Lanzarote Camel. Hello, Alan Prosser, who is watching and listening, and as ever doing all the screen grabs, coming in on at IMSA Radio to help tell the story of the race. How fortunate we are that we have such great fans here in the US and around the world. In the US, Sirius XM 207 around the circuit as well, of course, and on IMSA Radio RS2, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. And what a pleasure it has been to be part of this IMSA renaissance in the last 8 years or so. Couple of races left on this season. Indianapolis coming up next for the inaugural battle on the bricks, with the WeatherTech Series on the Sunday and the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge with a 4-hour race on the Saturday evening. That's a prelude to a longer race there next year for this IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. Will increase. If you missed the news last time we were on the air as IMSA Radio, the Michelin Endurance Cup will expand to 5 races next year, with a long distance race for the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship at Indianapolis. And it would not, let me put it this way, it would not surprise me if that was a Saturday night race as well in the weather, for the WeatherTech. Under a new lighting system that Roger Penske and the team at Indianapolis Motor Speedway have invested in and will be trying out this year. We'll finish off this year, of course, as tradition dictates, at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta for Petit Le Mans. My first race in the US back in 1998. In some ways it feels like a million years ago, in some ways it feels like yesterday. And that is the circuit that I think I've been to probably more than any other in the States. Let's go through the field then, Jeremy. We've got Vasser Sullivan Lexus leading from Corvette in second, and WeatherTech Raceway Mercedes in third. WeatherTech Racing. It's not actually the whole circuit of Laguna Seca in third position. Then it's Paul Miller Racing in the BMW, Vasser Sullivan for their GTD Lexus, Loris Spinelli in sixth position for Fortier Racing's Lamborghini in the top 10, made up by Tim Korthoff in the dark-coloured Mercedes AMG number 32, Ross Gunn in the also very dark-coloured number 23 Aston Martin. The Heart of Racing Aston Martin, the pair of them actually running together in 8th and 9th, and haven't really shown the sort of pace that they would have been hoping for, with Roman De Angelis in 9th and Patrick Gallagher for Turner Motorsport in the number 96 BMW in 10th position. So this is taking, Jeremy, sorry, go ahead.
No, well, I was just going to say, I mean, the only guy who's really made any progress at the start of the race, or the guy's made mode progress, who's to be kind of a 23, that's Ross Gunn in the Pro Hard Racing Aston Martin, kind of a 23. He's up to 8th place, having started 11th. Other than that, there's really only been just one position change for anybody, either up or down, from the start of the race. The most significant of those, however, of course, has changed for second place, with the Corvette of Antonio Garcia finding way past the Mercedes of Daniel Junqueira.
We have had a number of laps behind the safety car here, the Lexus safety car. How's that going to affect how far these cars can stretch into the race, and what potential strategic advantages or even disadvantages might it have? Is this pushing people to two stops that are more evenly spaced, or does it push the first stop further into the race, Jeremy?
No, it's not really going to affect things that much. I mean, you're still going to have to make 2 stops during the race. That's no problem. What it does do, of course, is mean that the AM drivers in GTD have less track time. I mean, they'll do their 40 minutes, then they'll hop out and hand it over to their pros. So that's going to mean that the field is more bunched up than it would otherwise be, because we're going to be spending a goodly portion of that time under yellow. It just means that the bronze drivers in particular don't get much racing time, which is a bit of a shame, which is a big shame for them, quite frankly. But other than that, it's really not going to change too much. I mean, it'll widen up the windows that I already talked about earlier on are already pretty wide here in terms of when they need to make a pit stop.
Perfectly timed for the strategy of Nigel Dobby, who's tuned in following the Corvettes, of course. Great aficionado of Corvette racing. He says it's allowed me to pop downstairs to grab a fresh glass of Bordeaux. Other beverages are available. Drink responsibly and never drink and drive, obviously. But that sounds like a reasonable strategy, Nigel. Nice to know that you are with us for the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. Going green next time around. And Shea Adam, surprisingly, I see a bit of movement on the wall. What's going on down there?
I've walked up and down the pit lane twice now, and finally people are moving, and it's only the number 23 Heart of Racing Aston Martin. They are up on the wall with the fuel probe. They do have sticker Michelin sitting in the sunshine baking. Would take a little bit less long to get heat in them today in these conditions, but it looks like they're going to be doing a pit stop. No driver change. Alex Riberas is still up on the stand, and now that I've said it and told everyone else what they're doing, they're putting the fuel nozzle back down. Sorry, guys.
Might as well have had a huge foam finger pointing at them, Shea. Thank you. Hello to Sarah Rigby in Crewe, home of Bentley, but she'll be in the northwest of England cheering on the Heart of Racing Aston Martin Vantages. Following Ross Gunn via IMSA.tv. Even if you are in the States, the onboard cameras are available via IMSA.tv. Of course, if you're outside of the US, you can also get the World Feed TV with the IMSA radio commentary as well. No blocks, no breaks, no interruptions outside of the US. So one Lexus pulls into the pit lane, being the safety car. One Lexus hands the control of the field over to another yellow Lexus with a little bit more dark grey on it. The Weather Seal sponsored car comes through Hog Pen to restart the race, and Jack Hawksworth gets the hammer down, pulls out maybe 2, 3, 4 cars lengths between himself and Antonio Garcia. Same sort of distance back to the WeatherTech AMG. Best of the starts, first and fourth, I would say. Jack Hawksworth had an absolute peach, and so did Madison Snow, the best of the GTD runners. He's pulled out probably 6 or 7 lengths, maybe more, on Aaron Thielitz, who is starting the Vassar Sullivan number 12 Lexus. Team car leading the motor race at the moment. Copy boot restart by Jack Hawksworth, and a very good restart from Madison Snow, Jeremy.
Very true, and very similar to the start of the race overall, actually, with those top 4 cars are just edging away a little bit already from Aaron Thielitz. Thielitz certainly caught a little bit napping there at that restart, but Jack Hawksworth, he's using the grunt of that Lexus V8 away from the as soon as the green came out, he just jumped ahead of the Corvette. Once again, seems to be able to extend its lead. And the Lexus used to be really hard on its tyres. It was always its biggest Achilles heel, if you like. But the team has worked really, really hard on that over the years. And quite clearly now, Jack Hawksworth has no such qualms, because he's put the hammer to the floor, and off he goes to try and extend that lead a little bit in that number 14 Lexus. Meanwhile, Danny Juncadella now coming under pressure, and as that BMW comes alongside him on the straight and just motors past him. Wow.
Up to the top of the roller coaster. Madison Snow showing intent, as Jeremy mentioned there, going to the left-hand side of the number 79, but did not get through, and discretion being the better part of valour. But it seems that Madison feels he has got a little more pace in the car. What he doesn't want to do is have too big of a scrap with Daniel Umbedea and take too much out of his Michelin tyres. But what he does want to do is make sure that he keeps the gap between himself and Aaron Thielitz, and Thielitz is closing in. So it would seem now as if that lead BMW in GTD is being slightly held up by the WeatherTech AMG as they go through NASCAR, turn 3, and head to the left hook, appropriately named, as you get your left-hand side Michelin's on the curb, hook the curb a little bit just to help the car rotate into that, and then starting the serpentine run up from turn 5A all the way really up to the oak tree. Not very much of that run, which is about a third of the lap, where you are not turning or setting up for a corner.
Good restart there for Patrick Pilet, who made a position at the expense of Patrick Gallagher's number 96 Turner Motorsport BMW. He's up in the 10th place now for Pilet as he chases after Ross Gunn. He started ahead of Ross Gunn in 10th place, and he's now back up into 10th, having made that pass on Gallagher. But meantime, Jack Hawksworth once again jumped out to the lead there. And it was very interesting, certainly, wasn't it, to see Madison Snow hauling up alongside Juncadella on the straights. And now those two just pulled away just a little bit again from Aaron Thielitz in the Lexus. Made up ground last time through this downhill section here and into the Hog Pen towards the start-finish line, but those two cars have edged away from just a little bit.
Jay Adam, Jeremy Shaw and John Hindhaugh with you, and the action for the next 2 hours and 11 minutes. Actually, a wee bit more than that. We've got Michelin Post-Race Tech to try and break out what we've seen this weekend in what has been a stupendous event for IMSA and for VIR. Once again, I should say. The casualty early on, David Brule for Kelly Moss with Riley. Big impact to driver's right between turns 5 and 6, and the Porsche number 92 has been recovered back to the paddock. The team will start that rebuild as soon as possible. Good news, David was okay. That put the safety car out onto the track, but we are back racing now. It was around about 20 minutes ago. We went green about 5 minutes ago after the clean-up. The pits did not open because of the proximity to the start of the race. So it's Jack Hawksworth that leads by a second and a half. Vassar Sullivan, number 14 Lexus, that's the one with the yellow and black car with the red number background, door mirrors and wing end plates. Oh, and the edges to the windscreen banner as well. Antonio Garcia in the Corvette number 3. That one's easy to spot. We all know what a Corvette looks like. Daniel Hunkadaya in the mostly white WeatherTech Racing Mercedes with the red and blue swooshes on it. It's the number 79 car in third. Leading GTD in fourth. Paul Miller Racing, red, white and black BMW number 1 from Aaron Tielitz in the sister car to the leader, but this time with the green number backgrounds and accoutrement. And then it is the 6th place car, the grey and green Lamborghini number 78. That's your in-race update with VP Racing. Let's go down to the pit lane and share Adam, who's with Robbie Foley.
Robbie, you've won this race. You've won the Pilot Challenge race, so you're the best person to ask after a second place finish yesterday. How do you be successful at VIR?
Well, this weekend you have to be the heat, that's for sure. It's hot today as well as yesterday, so we have a good balance in the car, I think, in the heat. Got to protect our rear tires for us, at least in our BMW, but we've been very quick this weekend. Patrick's been very quick. Got shuffled around at the start a little bit. We're kind of in the line. It's difficult to pass here, but John Solano on the box is one of the best who will create the magic for us, as we did yesterday. So we'll try to put this number 96 on the box just like yesterday and give these Turner guys a good result like they deserve.
Did you actually learn anything yesterday in the race yesterday that you can apply to today?
I would say a little bit. The track was super greasy yesterday also, so just knowing how the car evolves over a stint, the cars are quite different, GT4 versus GT3, but you still get some knowledge about how the track evolves on and offline, trying to make passes. So definitely a different car to race, but a good baseline for me.
You're wearing one of these cold vests. Does that actually work?
It worked for about 5 minutes. Now the ice packs are no longer cold, so it must be doing something, but I'm trying to stay cool.
Enjoy when you get out there.
Thanks, we'll do.
So, still well over 2 hours to go, and championship. Talk too much about the championship during our race broadcast, Jeremy. Talked about it in our Michelin Countdown Agreed on IMSA Radio. It is coming to that time of the year, isn't it? And we've seen this happen, particularly actually at this racetrack before, when you do get a slight difference in mentality between teams and particularly drivers who are thinking about the end of the race at Road Atlanta and a potential championship victory, and teams, and again particularly drivers, who are thinking about, I need to be further up the field, I need to win this race, because some teams are out of the championship hump already right now.
Yeah, that's certainly, you know, in GTD Pro, it's looking pretty good for the Lexus team of Ben Varnickers and Jack Hawksworth. I mean, he came in with a sizable advantage, and it stretched it a little bit more by virtue of getting pole position, because 35 points now for pole position for the last couple of 3 years in the IMSA competition. So they now lead by 174 over Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor. We just this race and a couple of races to go, you know, the opportunities are somewhat limited to cut into that gap. But in GTD non-pro, it's also looking good for Madison Snow and Brian Sellers. Again, they extended their lead with the pole position yesterday, and now lead by 215 points over Roman DeAndres and Marcus Sorensen. So looking very, very good for them. Really, they just need 3 solid finishes, and it should be championship there and job done for the Paul Miller Racing BMW team.
FAF Motorsport, the Motul driveway supported car. Patrick Pilet sitting in 10th position in the overall standings, 15th class. I'll say right now that come the last stanza of the race, we'll probably stop talking about GTD and GTD Pro for a little while and just concentrate on the overalls, and we'll sort it out with the checkered flag. Important to understand if you're not familiar with this racing, and I accept that people are coming to us all the time, certainly with the 30% uptick in our global TV and radio feed last year. We're clearly attracting a lot of new viewers and listeners with the IMSA's brilliant form of multi-class motor racing. So if you're not used to this and you've been recommended, first of all, welcome, and you are very welcome. Any questions you want to ask at IMSA Radio, and you'll find people very helpful there. But the GTD pros, albeit sound like they should be at the front of the field, and indeed the top three are. However, in terms of performance potential of the cars, one Vassar Sullivan Lexus is the same as another Vassar Sullivan Lexus. One AMG Mercedes is very much the same as another AMG Mercedes, or indeed the two Heart of Racing Aston Martins. It is down to how the teams set them up and how the drivers, spookily enough, how the drivers drive them. And of course, some engineering and some strategy goes into that as well. But in terms of the actual performance potential, the ultimate performance potential, the cars are the same. It is a performance balanced category. That means IMSA is monitoring a huge amount of data. That means that a low, svelte McLaren can compete on a reasonably level playing field with a slightly more upright BMW, and a front-engine BMW or AMG or Aston Martin can compete with a mid-engine or indeed a rear-engined car, Corvette or NSX Honda, Acura I should say, or Porsche, of course, for the rear-engine cars. And whilst BOP is often seen as a negative in some series, Jeremy, you and I have said many times down through the years that the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, and here in the GTD classes of the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship, all hail to BOP, because we have seen such a variety of cars down through the years, and such a variety of manufacturers, and they have all had their times at pole positions, fastest lap, and indeed podium positions.
True that, and it's been another fantastic season this year, no doubt, because I mean, the BMW in GTD non-pro has won 4 races, but the other race all been run. Well, 2 wins for Aston Martin, 1 win apiece for Porsche and Lexus, and Lexus. Yes, so it is spread out widely. All of the manufacturers have scored at least a pole and or a podium, so it's pretty darn good. And once again, we've seen that again here. We just saw a couple of laps ago, Jack Hawkes was set a new fastest lap of the race. That was immediately eclipsed by the second place car of Antonio Garcia, so he is at the fastest lap so far now, 146.610 for him, and Madison Snow right behind him, 46.633, so almost identical times between the Corvette and the BMW.
Coming down to the 2 hours to go mark, so we are about 7 minutes away from the minimum driver time, 45 minutes in this race. You will note that IMSA are fairly clever at setting minimum driver times that don't necessarily match with a full tank of petrol and the usage of the VP racing fuel, or make it easy to split the races up into an easy set of stints throughout the race. A little bit of an off-track moment for Daniel Hunkadea in 3rd place, just overdid the speed on the entry to turn 3, the NASCAR bend. There is a little bit of pavement outside the yellow and blue curbs. He used that and a bit of the dust, threw that into Madison Snow's windscreen as he went through there. Just keep an eye on that car as it comes through, looking a little more dusty. And a question here that you might be able to answer about that number 1 Paul Miller Racing BMW, sitting in 4th place. A couple of people just noticing how well that pops in the sunshine, that colour scheme. What's the origins of that red, white and black colour scheme on that car?
That that's something that Paul Miller has had on his race cars for a very long time now, and it's always been some variety of that combination. Last year, there was a little bit more silver to it. This year, a little bit more white. Paul does like having the silver and the gray, so we could see a change here again next year, but the joke is that they went to GTD Pro for next year because red matches the car a lot better than the green does.
Thank you, Shea. Very good indeed. Well, we've had a decent amount of green flag then, some 20 minutes or thereabouts. And Jack Hawksworth has made use of that, Jeremy, to pull away from Antonio Garcia, now up to 2.3 seconds. Still no threat of lapping any traffic at the moment. The back of the field is going through turn 7 as the front of the field. Big Jack Hawksworth is heading halfway down the back straight. That is one of the advantages of having a single category, as it were. And do you think, Jeremy, we'll see a few takers at the 45-minute mark, so around about 3.5, 4 minutes time?
Oh yes, we'll have at least half a dozen cars in, I think, pretty much right away. It's the earliest opportunity they get the pro driver in there, and then go from there. And no one's too far off the pack. I mean, Alan Brynjolfsson's fallen about 7 seconds behind PJ Hyatt, but PJ is within 15 seconds or so, less than that actually, of the leader in the class. So it's not much differential between any of the cars in the whole field. They're all covered. The last guy is about 30 odd seconds behind the overall leader. So it's not much to choose at all.
It's Alan Brynjolfsson in the 77 Wright Motorsport Volt Racing Porsche, and 31.8 seconds to be absolutely on the nosy. So he comes out of the turn 2 kink and into turn 3 as the leader is going into turn 10. You can follow along, by the way, livetiming.alcamelsystems.com/IMSA, and there is a tracker on there as well for the dancing at, or results.imsa.com is the one that is probably easy to remember, and you can get all the timing information that we have here in the IMSA broadcast booth and follow along if you're a seasoned follower of endurance racing. Here's Madison Snow having a go again, coming into turn 13 and 14 at the top of the roller coaster, trying to get through into overall third position. Daniel Hunkedaer has to give way this time, and the BMW is ahead, Jeremy, of the 79 WeatherTech AMG.
Yeah, and Madison's already pulled out about 3.5, nearly 4 seconds over Aaron Telitz, who's running second in non-pro as well. So another really good performance here for Madison Snow. The Utah has been, I mean, he loves this racetrack. He and Brian Sellers scored their first win here 8 years ago now, 8 years ago. Remarkable, isn't it, how quickly time flies? But he loves the track. He's taking advantage of a really good Paul Miller Racing BMW and stretching his lead over Aaron Telitz and the rest of the GTD field. Meanwhile, the race leader turning very, very consistent laps at the front of the field. 46.67 last time around for Jack Hawksworth. His best lap of the race was 46.65. So incredibly close. And just over the last couple of laps or so, he's extended his lead now to 2.7 seconds over the Corvette in second place. So that leading Lexus working really, really well.
Yeah, and just take a note of this, 2 seconds between Madison Snow and Antonio Garcia. Now he's been sprung from behind Daniel Hunkedaer. Can he catch Antonio Garcia, or at least eat into that? We are about a minute or so another lap away from hitting that 45-minute minimum drive time. And by the way, not that this should be a surprise, but there are people who will be putting the black marker of doom, the Sharpie of doom, through cars on the brilliant Andy Blackmore Sporters Guide. 92 has officially been retired now. I think we could probably have guessed that after that incident at turn 5 and 6 early on. But, for those of you who keep note of these things. That is an official retirement. Jack Hawksworth goes through and resets the fastest lap of the race, and the four-tier Lamborghini, trying to get in the pit lane, has stopped in the pit lane entrance, just at the commit part of the track on the green and yellow hash marks. And a quick reset, a little Michelin rubber laid down, and that is going to take time now. Oh, Laura Spinelli will be annoyed about that, committed to the pit lane and the car ground to a halt. So I wonder if that, I reckon that was on purpose for drive time. 45 seconds has just elapsed. I'm not sure you're supposed to do that, so race control might have a look at that. Now, into the pit lane, Shea Adam is down there. This is the first of the 45-minute club, Shea. Drive time has been fulfilled.
Fuel, tires, and Misha Goikberg installed behind the wheel. Now the car has been redone, refueling for 5 seconds. Misha just fires it back up and gets it rolling once again. So that is the first pit stop done. We did see this incident played out before at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in a DTI. It was Core Autosport. John Bennett stopped at the pit entrance, waited for drive time to elapse, and then drove in. So we do have a precedent for that. There was no penalty for that incident. And just a wild fact for you, 13 previous GT3 starts at VIR for Porsche. 1 win, 2 podiums, 8 top 5 finishes. This is the first DNF, so that will mark it up to 17 starts for Porsches, 1 DNF.
So pit stops have started. Hello to Dylan Blackhurst. He says, excuse me asking a dumb question. Dylan, I said if you need to know anything at IMSA Radio, there's no dumb questions. There are only incomplete answers. Where are the hypercars? Have I missed them already? No hypercars this weekend. They're called GTPs here in IMSA. They're the LMDH version of the top category of the prototypes. The global prototypes, DPI 2.0 if you like. This is a GT-only race here at IMSA. We will have GTPs back next time out at Indianapolis, and then again for the 10 hours at Road Atlanta. Please tune in for that. Dylan, welcome to the IMSA sports car family. Shea Adam, another plethora, flurry at least, of pit stops.
Paul Miller Racing was in. Madison Snow got out. Brian Sellers took the car back out with 4 new tires. We've had both of the Turner Motorsport BMWs in. It's Bill Auckland in the 97 and Robbie Foley in the 2096. Sorry, side by side for Catherine Legg and Bill Auberlin as Bill falls into line behind the Gradient Racing Acura. New tires for that Acura as well. The Porsche Roxy this weekend, as she is. Rexy off on the way to Japan. That is now Seb Prio. We've got Kai Van Berlo in the number 91 for Kelly Moss with Riley in their Porsche. Tires and fuel for them. And tires and fuel for Wright Motorsport in the Bolt Racing machine. Alan Brynjolfsson started and Trent Hammond is behind the wheel now.
Expect then to see this play out in strategy. Chris Suku says, does Roxy, and Rexy to that point, remind you of a Dame Ladart SP250 from the front 3 quarters? I know what you mean with that mouth, the upturned sort of cord on the front of that car, the segment on the grille. The V8 Hemi 2.5 litre, the best Jaguar engine that never was. Daimler had it instead. Hawksworth still leading, now by 3.2 seconds from Antonio Garcia in second. Daniel Huncadella, of course, back up to third after that pit stop by the leading GTD car. Brian Sellers should cycle back around to the lead as Courtoff Motorsport is in the pit lane. Shea Adam is watching.
They've done a driver change. It is now Mike Skeen out and Mick Grenier in. Fuel and tires for the Inception Racing McLaren. Very slow driver change there as Frederick Schandorf has taken over with 4 new Michelins. We've got the Aston Martin from Art of Racing, number 27. This is the GTD car. Marco Sorensen is now behind the wheel with fuel and 4 sticker Michelins. And the first of our GTD Pro stoppers, that was Pfaff Motorsports coming in. Patrick Pile started. Klaus Bachler, first racing laps around VIR. Welcome to this place, which is heaven on earth, Klaus.
So Jeremy, the first of the pit stoppers, that doesn't completely decide their strategy. You mentioned earlier on about the wiggle room that we've got here at a 2-hour 40-minute race.
Yeah, and bizarre decision by Forte Racing, by US Racing to park Spinelli at the beginning of the pit lane there and lose several seconds, because he just set the fastest lap of the race in GTD on the lap before that. I mean, there's not that. I don't understand the rush to get him in. Misha's pretty quick. So, yeah, they've lost a lot more time by waiting than they would have done by doing one more lap and coming in with the rest of the contenders. So a very bizarre decision there. Well, that's going to be quite costly, I think.
Well, the worst news is that they didn't hit the pit time anyway. They were short by 6 seconds. So that's really worked badly for them. So they're going to have to get Spinelli in from back in that car at some time.
No, Spinelli's going to go in. He's going to do the final stint in any case.
Okay.
That's not the issue. The issue is, why did he stop at the beginning of the pit lane? Because Spinelli, I'm sure the plan is for him to get in to do the final stint. Same with Aaron Tielitz, who is handing over the number 12 car to Frankie Montecalvo. Tielitz will get in for the final stint of this race. That's the plan. So, I don't know, bizarre. We need to find out why Spinelli stopped there and didn't come straight into the pits like he should have done.
Shea Adam is in the pit lane. I'm sure she'll go and ask Forte in a moment what's been happening, Shea.
Heading up in that direction now, just watch the pit stop for the number 12 Vassar Sullivan Lexus. That was Frank Montecalvo taking over for the middle stint from Aaron Tielitz. They did fuel and 4 Michelin tires. And up on the wall, just giving me a 5th bump, Alex Riberas is ready to take over for Ross Gunn in the number 23 Heart of Racing Aston Martin.
Hello to Oscar Paravani, who's tuned in, wants to know what his dad Gary does when he's away. Great motor racing family there. Hello Gary, hello Oscar as well, and welcome to the broadcast at IMSA Radio. If you'd like to get in touch with us, we're in the middle of the pit stop window now. There will be at least one more before the end of the race, which is 1 hour and 50 minutes away. 2 more races for these cars before the end of the season, and we'll be rejoined by the top prototypes as well. Looking forward to Indianapolis Motor Speedway next time out, and if you haven't booked yet, you are allowed to camp on the infield for the first time ever in Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Doug Bowles was making a video there recently, the man at the head of Indianapolis Motor Speedway. See the website for details. Let's take some insight from some of the drivers who started the race. Shea Adam.
Laura Spinelli, why the stop coming into the pit lane?
Honestly, we don't know, because this one come out Friday, and it happened always in the same part. So in the last corner, as soon as I jump on the curb, the car turn off by itself. We tried everything to figure out the problem, but today, unfortunately, come out again, and nothing to say. We keep pushing again.
It's happening again out on the track. Loris, I'll let you go and commiserate. So sorry.
So there is the answer. Well done, Shea, for getting the answer to that. So not a call, Jeremy, just the car coughing and spluttering on the way in.
Yeah, really irritating for that team, because they had a fast car here. I say Laura Spinelli just set the fastest lap right before that, so that was bizarre. I thought there had to be more to that story. So well done to Shea Adam for completing that book. But yeah, really disappointing for them, because they had a really fast car this weekend again.
The Heart of Racing Aston Martin team have not had a weekend up to their normal standard, and it's getting worse. They're going to have to come down the pit lane for the 27 car again. Their fuel flow was incorrect. They didn't adhere to the minimum fuel time. Their second car is in, the 23 Pro car with Alex Riberas Corvette in as well. In the number 3 GTD Pro comes out to 3rd position. Antonio Garcia brought that car in. I'm pretty certain that Antonio jumped out of that car very early in the piece. That's a great stop from Pat Miller. Coming back with GTD D cars next year, and of course there'll be privateer cars as well in the GTD category. Jordan Taylor taking over that car as he looks at his last 3 races for GM and Corvette, been a massive part of that racing family for a little while, but he's going back to his actual family for next season as he heads to Acura, to GTP and to Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti Autosport. They'll have 2 GTP cars in the championship next year. Jordan then rejoining. Good battle going on between the number 70 Inception, Frederick Schandorf, and Klaus Bachler. That's the battle for 9th and 10th. As the leader comes into the pit lane, second place into the pit lane as well. Shea Adam is there to watch.
The first car that will hit its box will be the first car off the pit lane, the 14 Faster Sullivan Lexus, because they have the best box. Fuel, tires, looks like they are doing a driver change as well. They're definitely doing a driver change for the 79 WeatherTech Racing Mercedes. Jules Gagnon hopping in as Danny Gingaya already out of the car. Fuel, 4 sticker tires. Ooh, those ones actually, no, I lied. The left sides of the WeatherTech Mercedes have been scrubbed in, but very light, as if they only did that in morning warm-up. Now we're waiting for both of the cars to refire. I'm going to stand a little bit back from the 79 Mercedes. It did have a fuel issue the other day, or at least they think it was a fuel issue that caused the car to go up in flames. Lexus out, rolls away. Where is Brian Sellers? Answer, lead of the race. So if we were to go to yellow right now, the GTD class would get to pit before GTD Pro.
It's a very good point that you've mentioned there, Shea. That's the only time that the 2 classes are recognised, not in qualifying. It is seen as a single class. But if we have yellow flag pit stops, the category that is at the front of the field gets first dibs at the open pit lane. Tim Fulbrook saying, seeing a couple of drivers watching on the onboards only properly tightening up their belts after leaving the pit lane. Is there a rule? Should have your belt stood up before you leave the pit lane, certainly before you come off the pit lane speed limiter, Tim. If the officials see that, there will be some kind of penalty for that, and similarly you're not allowed to unfasten them completely before you get out of the car. And hello to Robert Melvin in the UK. Golf on Viaplay. Hope the race replay comes up on YouTube tomorrow. You can watch, Robert, on your computer. It's absolutely free. If you go to IMSA.tv or if you go to IMSARadio.com and hit the live video button, and actually I'll quickly reply to you with IMSA Radio and fire you the audio and video links as well. There's no subscription for that and no ads either. Jeremy, starting to cycle through the rest of the pit stops now.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? And I mean, number 14 Lexus has been running very solidly out front. And it must have put a bit more fuel into that car than the number 1 car for Paul Miller Racing. That would explain that difference between those 2. I think maybe the number 1 car just evening up their stints more so than the number 14 car. I mean, it came in earlier, so it would have needed less fuel to top it off. But it's certainly a faster stop, and that's what has got Brian Sellers out into the lead of this race overall by about 3.5 seconds, because before he came into the pits, he was a similar margin behind the Lexus. So the only way to explain that, because the lap times prior to the stop for Hawksworth were really good. So I think it must have been just a shorter stop, less fuel going in to the number 1 car is what I would assume.
So let's pick up a few battles through the field. The Winward number 57, 11th position, Phil Ellis with a similar coloured car behind him, but that's a BMW. Bill Oberlin, who had it coming together with Catherine Legg as they were exiting the pit lane after their pit stops. 66 Acura just in behind there, Jeremy.
Yep, and nice first stint there for Sheila Monk. She's handed over to Catherine, who's already made up several positions since the restart. But Sheena was doing a really nice job there, hanging on to the Inception McLaren that was directly ahead of her through her first stint. Really good effort by them. Shandorf is still, since the pit stops, pulled out a little bit, pulled up a few positions in number 70 car, up to 9th position overall, now 5th in GTD for Frederick Shandorf. But it's, you know, at this stage, everything planning out pretty much as one expected. The loser, though, in that round was Marco Sorensen, number 27 car. That was the car that had to make an extra pit stop, though, wasn't it? That got penalised. Is that right?
Marco Sorensen.
Yeah.
In the 27 Heart of Racing Aston. Yes, that was the fuel, too quick a fuel stop. Yes, absolutely, Jeremy. So that's why that's been down the pit lane one extra time. They haven't decided to do some tricky strategy. Strategy was part of our Porsche keys to the race in Michelin Countdown to Green. Talking about strategy and track position and making sure you don't get penalties. Well, unfortunately, Heart of Racing number 27 Aston hasn't managed to stay clean on that point of view. Then it's all about fuel and tyres and pace and being a little bit patient. Brian Sellers has pace, he has experience, and he knows how to get himself to the end of the race. I thought it was a really good stint by Madison earlier on. It's off at the top of the circuit. This is the Arrow 78. No, it's not. It's at turn 1, excuse me. The Forte Lamborghini has gone off at the horseshoe and just makes it back onto the circuit in elegant isolation there, so it hasn't bothered anybody else, and there was nobody around either. So those at the moment, we'll keep an eye on those Porsche keys to the race. Just a little bit of a oh, engine's cut out again. Engine cut out again. The lights went out, so that wasn't the fault of the driver there, Misha Goikberg. So the lights go out, which means the engine's cut, and therefore he loses the brake pedal, he loses the ability to steer with the power steering, and so he'll be jumping on that brake pedal, probably with both feet, and trying to get the car restarted. That is a real safety issue now for that car. They're going to have to bring it back in, Jeremy, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Really unfortunate. I mean, it seems to be out of control with that car. They don't seem to be able to understand exactly what the problem is. And it's bitten them now several times, and it's going to be a really, really long afternoon from here for that number 78 crew. Meanwhile, new fastest lap of the race a couple of laps ago by Jordan Taylor. 1:45.010 for the Corvette. And that is a new lap record, because he had the record last year at a 45.4, so 45.0 there for Jordan Taylor.
Jeremy, we've got a crash. Got a crash. This is at turn 14. You don't have a small one at the top of the roller coaster. This is going to bring out the safety car again. Somebody's gone straight on. I have a strong suspicion that is the Lamborghini again. There's a little bit of green that I can see, and I think that's the Arrow livery on what I can see of the swan neck. Yes, it is confirmed now by our team up at Charlotte, who have a couple more views of that. Thank you very much, Aaron. And our intrepid camera operators, second full course caution of the race. And do the lights go out again? Yes, they do. Exactly the same as we saw at turn 1. And this time with far more significant consequences. So the engine cuts out, and at that point, Misha Goikberg is a complete passenger. She's already down at the team, and they've given her the nod. He's been speaking to them, and he is okay. That is a driver's nightmare, Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean, brake failure and a fire are the two things you fear most as a driver, and they didn't have the fire. That was the number 79 car in the pit lane on Friday, but with all the electrics cut out, you've got no braking on these cars, and he just went pretty much unabated speed into that tyre barrier. So really scary there for Mr. Goikhberg, and certainly good to hear that he's been talking to the crew, and hopefully, he's completely buried underneath that tyre wall. But gosh, that's a really scary incident there for the number 78 Lamborghini.
I think as bad as the loss of the power to the brakes, you will still at least get some retardation, and you can slow it down a wee bit. It's the loss of the steering, Jeremy, because these cars have got such short steering racks. By that I mean you don't turn very much side to side. Pretty much if you go through 90 degrees, certainly 180 degrees, you're pretty much on full lock. And that means that there's an awful lot of resistance on the steering rack itself. Plus you've got big, wide, sticky Michelin tyres that don't want to turn. And when you have no power assistance, it's nigh on impossible to turn the wheel, particularly at the high speeds that we're talking about here, with a wee bit of downforce on as well. So that car, I tell you what has happened, those banded tyres did their job, didn't they? Because there's what, 3 or 4 rows of tyre stacks there that are held together with almost a conveyor belt style of rubber casing around the outside that are bolted through them. And that has absorbed the energy of the Forte Lamborghini and stopped it getting to the guardrail. And in that, and look, they don't look particularly pretty, they don't look particularly high-tech, but they still do their job.
They really do, and there's a gap between that banded tyre barrier and another barrier behind that as well, so it can move that entire tyre wall, if you like, forward probably 6 or 8 feet or maybe 10 feet. I'm not quite sure what the gap is there, but it's substantial, and that in itself dissipates a lot of energy as well. Some weather over there in the distance. Last time I looked at the weather forecast, by the way, if we're going to get any rain here, it's going to be after 5 o'clock, and the race should be done by then, so I'm going to drink to that. Just before that caution period came out, Frederick Schandorf moved up a couple of positions. He got past both the number 23 Aston Martin of Alex Riberas and the Michael Grenier's team Court Mercedes, which has lost about half a dozen positions. It's fallen from 7th to 12th, so lost 5 positions, did Grenier. So not quite sure what happened there that Schandorf jumped 2 places from 9th to 7th.
Looks like there's a little bit of perhaps the evidence of raindrops on the number 70 Inception windscreen, unless it's just been some dirt or some debris thrown up onto that car.
No, I'd certainly like to know how he made up those 2 positions on that last lap, and why Michael Grenier fell back several positions. We've got several pit stops though taking place, it would appear.
Shea Adam is watching.
Topping off for the following cars: 57 Windward Racing Mercedes, 27 Herta Racing Aston Martin, 77 Volts, that would be the Wright Motorsport Porsche, the 91 from Kelly Moss with Riley, and Roxy was in for AO Racing. Those cars coming down the pit lane, everybody else staying out. And of course, this was the example. GTD car leading overall. GTD cars get to come down the pit lane first.
Hello to Sasha Hutchison in Ambleside in the Lake District in the UK, cheering on all of the team Lexus cars, both of the team Lexus car. And there is definitely rain falling at the area closest to the top of the roller coaster. And Shea Adam has come woefully unprepared to the pit lane, which is unusual for her. No rain gear, Shea.
I'm an optimist, John. My rain gear is my waterproof shoes. But other than that, no, the rain gear is still back in the truck because they said there was a chance of thunderstorms, and I didn't even want to give them the opportunity to come to fruition.
Oh, there's your first mistake.
Yeah.
If you bring it all or wear it all, it's not going to rain. That's, but it's not very comfortable in this sort of heat.
Yeah, you'll get wet all right, but from the inside out if you're wearing it when it's hot. Been there, done that one. Got the really soggy T-shirt that I had to get rid of, to be quite honest. Let's give you a VP Racing rundown. Pits are open for the GTD Pro now. It's Brian Sellers that leads. He did not take the opportunity to come in when the pits opened for GTD. The fact that he was leading meant that it was the GTD class that were allowed to come in first. The GTD Pro sitting behind him, and remember he fought his way to the front, or at least between him and Madison Snow. Ben Barnacle for Vassar Sullivan in the 14 Lexus. The Corvette number 3 has Jordan Taylor behind the wheel. Jules Gounon has taken over the number 79 WeatherTech AMG. And then it's Robbie Foley for Turner Motorsport. He's the second place GTD, 5th position overall. Frankie Montecalvo for Vassar Sullivan's Lexus number 12. Fred Schandorf for the number 70 Inception Racing McLaren inside the top 10 there. Then the 2 GTD Pro outliers, if you will, the Harter Racing Aston number 23 and the Klaus Bachler driven Pfaff Motorsport Porsche number 9. They're in 8th and 9th. Top 10, Bill Oberlin, Turner Motorsport, who had contact in that number 97 BMW with the 66 of Catherine Legg at turn 1 that happened a few laps ago. Jules Gounon coming into the pits, by the way. Behind Oberlin is Michael Grenier and Catherine Legg, and just coming out the pits, Winward, Wright, Harter Racing, Kelly Moss and AO Racing, 57, 77, 27, 91 and 80, having had their splashes. That's your VP Racing update. And Shay, you've got some GTD Pros.
Fuel only for the 23 Harter Racing Aston Martin and the 79 WeatherTech Racing Mercedes. Let's see if WeatherTech stops at the pit close light. It does. Very well done. Good job, Joel. Waiting on Alex Riveras to fire the car back up. Once again, it doesn't want to go. The fuel probe has been released from the car. Alex can't get it in gear. He can't get it moving. That's a 4-tire stop for Pfaff, by the way, while they did the fuel. Now Alex gets the car fired up once again. They're plugging the fuel probe in to make sure that they got every last drop of fuel in. They didn't, and there we go. Now Alex is able to roll away. The best news is that that happened under caution, because if that had been under green flag, that would have been 15 seconds lost.
That's a good point, Shay. Thank you. Hello to Mark Whiteleg. So have you seen the new Lexus GT3, Toyota Lexus? Not sure what it's going to be called yet. Testing at Motegi last week. It was testing at Fuji a couple of 3 months ago. There's some video of that was leaked out by, I'm pretty certain it was Gazoo Racing who leaked it. Can't wait to see it racing globally, he says. SportsCar 365, we've got some pictures and some video of that. John de Geese and the rest of his crew working hard this weekend covering sports car racing around the globe. At 2025, we're hearing for that mark, and the possibility certainly the rumour is that we might see the RCF in the WEC next year, because Toyota and Lexus want to go to Le Mans in GT, and it's GTD that is the formula for Le Mans from next year onwards. The new car probably not ready by then, therefore we might yet see the RCF there. That's not confirmed, but certainly we know that they would get a preferential space on the grid in WEC because Toyota are racing in hypercar, and that's how that is working. If you've got a hypercar entry, you get a preferential entry for GT as well in the WEC, and of course if you're in the WEC, the World Endurance Championship, you automatically get entries for the Le Mans 24 hours. Mark, thanks for your question. Keep them coming at IMSA Radio. Winners and losers, Jeremy, in that. I mean, we've got an hour and a half to go yet, so there's plenty of time for it to even out, but has that yellow flag come at a good or bad time for anyone in particular as the rain continues to drizzle?
No, it just gives some of the teams an opportunity to try something a little bit different. That'd be the reason number 23 and number 9 came in. They were kind of off the back of the other 3 contenders in GTD Pro. Interesting that number 79 car should come in and lose its track position, but they've been struggling just a little bit, and they would Jules Gounon driving that car now. I think he'd been losing a little bit of ground to the Corvette prior to this full course caution, after making the earlier pit stop and driver change. The highest place for the GTD cars to come in to the pits was the 10th place number 57 Winward Racing Mercedes. 3 cars behind it did not. That was 97, 32, 66. And then the last 4 cars, which were number 80, 91 27, which had had the penalty earlier on and dropped to the back, and number 77, they all took the opportunity to come in and take a splash of fuel, which will mean their final stop or their next stop, because they're going to need, they're going to still need to come in one more time from here, will be shorter than the others that will need a little bit more fuel at that stage. But of those 4 cars, or those 5 cars that came in for GTD, i.e. non-pro, 57 car remained out front. Number 77 car for Wright Motorsports, so jumped from 17th position, moved up 3 places, and will also be ahead of the 3 GTD Pro cars as well for the restart. So that certainly worked out really well for Wright Motorsports and Trent Hinman.
Rain getting a bit heavier in certain parts of the circuits. Lewis Hesketh, and you're not missing any action here, so a chance to answer some questions at IMSA Radio. Louis Hesketh, my apologies, Louis. Famous racing name there. Why is Petit Le Mans called Petit Le Mans, Small Le Mans, when the much missed Dr. Dom Pinos decided that he was going to revive IMSA and do his bit for sports car racing in the US after his cars had run at Le Mans in the mid to late 90s. He came up with an idea of a 10-hour sports car race at what is now Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta, and he liked the idea of Le Mans. He went to go and he'd raced at Le Mans, of course, with the Pinos, the early Pinos, and he went to the ACO and asked if he could license the name and use the name Le Mans. They said yes. So as a tryout in October 1998, they put on a race there called Petit Le Mans, Small Le Mans. It had all the same sort of pomp and circumstances, the anthems, including the singing of the French national anthem, as well as the American one before the race. And we'll see that again this year at Motul Petit Le Mans. That then became the American Le Mans Series in 1999. And long story short, without all of that, we wouldn't be talking to you about this race now. And certainly I wouldn't have had the 25-year career that I have talking about motor racing in the US. And I have enjoyed every single minute of doing that. And so we owe a debt to Dr. Dom Pinos and his vision and his single-mindedness, I picked my words carefully there, of not taking no for an answer and believing that he could make this work, and my goodness me, he did. And what we're seeing now is certainly a legacy of that, and of course of Jim France. The 2 series came together in, what was that, 13, 14? And IMSA and Grand Am became what was then the Tudor United SportsCar Championship, and has brought the whole of global sports car racing to a single class at the top. Those were the cars we were talking about earlier on. Pace car is in the pit lane, and the rain is, well, it's not too bad at various parts of the circuit, but it's still spitting on at others. And we're back to green flag racing with an hour and 22.5 minutes to go. And Brian Sellers is the one who has to deal with the conditions because he's the leader. He'll get to them first. There are some wet weather grooved tyres on the tyre trolleys in the pit lane. But what we don't have here, Jeremy, is what's called intermediate. It's either slick tyres with no rain clearing, no water clearing ability, or it's the full wets.
That's right, so they'll be hoping it stays dry, and certainly the sun seems to come out again now. There were a few spots of rain, certainly, but the bright sunshine as Brian Sellers leads the field up the hill for this restart, and we're going to be hoping it stays like this for the next, hour or so, hour and a bit more, hour and a half.
Yeah, 1 hour and 22 minutes when we went back green. Side by side, the Inception McLaren going with Bill Oberlin there. Turner Motorsport, I think, making up a position. Yeah, Bill's gone through. They came through on the start line the other way around, so Bill Oberlin pushing through, elbows out, and goes up into 6th overall and 4th in the GTD category. Marco Sørensen for Partner Racing Team, having a look around the outside of, I think that's Trent Hinman, sounds like a Porsche. as he was looking around. Oh, it was a Porsche, but it was in fact the 91 of Kai van Berlo, the Kenny Moss racing car. So Sorensen and van Berlo, so that was Kai van Berlo trying to take a position, and in fact taking a position, so that will change as they cross the line. Right now he's gone up into 10th. The engine note right, just got the car wrong. Would have been easier from the outside because the Volt car is a very bright yellow. Good restart from Brian Sellers. Ben Barnicut now behind the wheel of the number 14, Vassar Sullivan. Lexus in second, but leads GTD Pro ahead of the Corvette, just 2/10 behind Jordan Taylor. Battles right the way through the field, Jeremy, as you would expect after the restart.
Yeah, absolutely right. And you talked about the Porsche keys to the race before the race. How important was track position going to be? Well, apparently not very important for number 79, 9 or 23. I'm really surprised that they would have given up all that position to fall right to the way back here. I can't see how that's going to work out in their favour at the end of the race, with the other two contenders in GTD Pro running second and third at the moment. And well, yes, were second and third. Because there's I saw the lead by Ben Barnicut up at turn 12, and the Corvette's going to follow him through as well.
That is not the worst thing for the BMW. Remember, they are in different classes. They can't go 3 wide through the roller coaster. There's
that Corvette's fast on the straights, isn't it?
Oh,
wow.
no touch there.
Wow, that Corvette was fast on the straight, but what a great late braking move there by Ben Barnicut on the outside line to maintain that lead. But that's certainly going to be a worry for the Lexus, because that Corvette was seriously quick on the straight.
No DRS. Or
for anybody else, at least.
Well, yes, indeed. No help for passing, no Super Mario speed up. You have to plan and scheme, use the hole in the air that the car in front is making. A little bit of drafting, a little bit of slipstream. Brian Sellers then down to third, but still leads in GTD. The problem is now, of course, he doesn't have his two tail gunners, and Robbie Foley and Fred Schandorf are right there. And the Inception McLaren looking pretty racy as well, but yeah. Robbie Foley moving through the field here for Turner Motorsport.
Yeah, I mean, he took the restart there. It was number 70 car that was on the move. It got past number 12. Robbie Foley was ahead of that at the restart. So it's been a really good first stint. Good pit stop for that number 96 car that elevated it from, 11th place up to 6th after the stops were completed. And Robbie Foley continuing that good work. He had a brilliant drive yesterday to finished second in the Michelin Pilot Challenge race, despite the fact his co-driver crashed the car, what looked like fairly comprehensively in the relatively early stages. So it's been a really good weekend for Robbie Foley, and another strong run here again now. We can see now whether he can put any pressure on Brian Sellers.
Shea Adam in the pit lane with an opportunity to talk to some of the drivers who did the early stints.
All right, Russell Roard, race winner here a year ago, pole sitter here a year ago. How good is Phil Ellis in the rain? Is that what it's going to take to get you guys back to the top step?
No, I mean he's fantastic in the rain, and it's definitely gonna help us. But I mean we've kind of split the strategy a little bit, and I think we're going to rely on that and see how the race unfolds.
Good luck.
Thank you.
So the number 57 Winward car currently sitting in 10th position, 8th in class. Phil Ellis is a very capable racing driver. Just on an hour and 17 minutes to go. Still one pit stop, Jeremy. And what do we reckon these cars that can do? We haven't really had a full green flag stint, have we? Both of the stints have been interrupted. Nice run out of the oak tree to rob Brian Sellers of the lead, or at least to relieve him of the lead. What do we reckon, 50 minutes, 55 minutes, do you think?
Yeah, they can do better part of an hour. I think, the GTD cars. And so we're looking for a moment of the race at the end of it. If the Lexus wins it, that'll be it for me, if I remember, because that was a really late breaking move on the outside there by Ben Barnick, enabled him to keep the lead. He maybe lost a little bit of momentum coming out of the oak tree, having passed Brian Sellers for the lead of the race, but it looked like he was going to fall back there. The Corvette seemed to be marching past him, but really super late on the brakes was Barnick. There he goes from the onboard the Corvette. That was a brilliant move by Barnick to maintain the lead, or kind of regain the lead, really, because it certainly lost it momentarily to the Corvette. That was fun to watch.
Oh, problem for the WeatherTech number 79 car. Smoke from the left rear. There's been contact there, and there's bodywork rubbing on the Michelin tyre at the left rear. Now, it's folded under. He's had a little bit of a tap from behind. It was more than a little bit of a tap. It was quite a bit of a thump, actually. That's the Pfaff Porsche that's hit him, that car, and that is going to cause some issue for Jules Goudon. The worry is when ideally the bit of bodywork will flip off and dissipate at the side of the track. The worry is when the smoking stops, because it probably means it's worn through the tyre. Sure, Jules will be allowed to continue like that. Race control will be keeping an eye on it. The good news is the little splashes of rain have disappeared, and we're back to full dry around the track. It didn't really affect the lap times. It was what drivers often call psychological rain, and as a motorcyclist I totally understand what they mean. When you see it on your windscreen, and as a motorcyclist when I see it on my visor, I immediately change my driving style. These guys are so good that they don't do that. They are feeling for the actual grip, not what their brain is telling them. Shea Adam, are we going to see the 79 car into the pit lane for WeatherTech?
Yes, we are, and I'm watching some bodywork being uncovered at Pfaff as well. They're possibly thinking about a new nose for the Porsche, so I wonder how bad the damage is to that as well. I'll run out to the wall and look at the Porsche as it combusted by, but yes, the pit board is down for WeatherTech. They're going to do a splash of fuel while he's in, of course.
Yeah, and that was quite a big hit there, and I haven't... oh yes, it has been reviewed, no action. I just wonder if the 79 car had been speared off into the boonies. It's in the pit lane now, as happened to Scott Andrews yesterday in the pilot race. Whether there would have been a different outcome from that, because that was no less of a hit than we saw yesterday. They're going to have to do a bit of work on the left rear. Shea Adam is looking at a reasonable amount of bodywork damage on the left rear, Shea.
It is. This carbon's not going to peel off very easily. They're going to have to actually probably get a lump hammer out actually to knock it loose. It's worn around the inside shoulder of the left rear Michelin, so that will be a concern as well, because they're going to have to get in there to try and loosen up the carbon bit so that it doesn't do the exact same thing to a new Michelin. They have managed to pull out the biggest bit of carbon that hung off the bottom left of the splitter. Unfortunately, it's held on by a very big metal rod to the middle of the diffuser. That's going to take even more work, and a block is underneath the car. It's going to be staying here for a few minutes, gentlemen. This is our third place in the championship coming into today's race.
Yeah, and again, that decision to come in and make that pit stop, John, it's just surprised me. I mean, give up all that track position, put yourself back there in more danger for this sort of a contact, and it's come back to bite them in the way I look at it.
Yeah.
A couple of interesting things. Frederick Schandorf is really charging now. He's overtaken Robbie Foley onto the tail now of Brian Sellers, and challenging for the lead in GTD, third position overall. The Sellers can't stay with those two GTD Pro cars at this stage in the race, at least. And Bill Oberlin has been moving forward as well, unsurprisingly. He's got past Aaron Tielitz, Frankie Montecalvo is now in the 12 car, and Oberlin back up and chasing his teammate Robbie Foley.
I think there might be a bit of suspension damage on the left rear of that WeatherTech car, third in the championship, as Shea mentioned, showing a little more camber than I would like to see, and I can see that with the naked eye, so there might be lower control arm that's been bent or something like that. Driver stays in the car, Jules Gunon. Nothing he can do, the door is open so he gets a wee bit of fresh air through, but there was a rueful shake of his head. They're getting a pry bar and various things in there to try and clean away the rear bodywork. It would have been better just to take the whole rear section off that car. The good news is I don't think it's damaged the under tray and therefore the diffuser. Shea's still looking at that at the moment. There's no damage to the aerodynamic parts right underneath the back of the car, Shea.
No, the stuff that's in the middle is okay, but there is a piece that attaches from the left rear of the bumper, if you will, that is a giant bolt attached to the diffuser. That is flopping around, and I don't see how they would secure that well enough to be able to set back out on the track without just tearing it off. Now they're trying to pull more of the bits off. Now, they're actually addressing the piece I was just talking about, trying to rip it off of the metal bar. They have now done that, so that's good. Here's 2 laps lost as the leaders come start finish. And I think if they can get that bar somehow into a position where the tech officials are happy with it, they will be allowed to go back out with the car as it is now, assuming that the suspension bits are all okay, as you mentioned, John.
IMSA technical official just giving the rear aerodynamic, underbody aerodynamics, the diffuser, a bit of a run, and that looked okay. Shea, not good.
The Michelin they just put back on was the Michelin that brought the car in, so I think this is going behind the wall.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much they're out of contention now in any case, unfortunately. It's just a shame because they had a good, strong weekend going. They qualified on the front row of the grid. It was all looking pretty good, but all of a sudden now it isn't. Tell you who it is looking good for is talked about Frederick Schandolf, who's certainly making great progress and right on the tail now of Brian Sellers. Also moving forward, Catherine Legg. Up into 8th position now in the gradient racing Acura car number 66. She got past the number 32 Michelin GT team quarter of Mercedes a lap or so ago. It was already put a bit of daylight between herself and the Canadian. And behind them, there's that big, long train of cars all shuffling for positions. The guy's moving up now. Unlike number 23 car, is number 9. Klaus Bachler has made up 4 or 5 positions. He's up from 16th now to 11th in car number 9.
Well, Jules Gunon did get a new left rear Michelin, and he's come out. He's dropped a couple of laps to the leaders, but he's heading up the hill now into an ever-darkening sky towards the southern end of the circuit. It's still sunshine. Track temperature still around about 93 degrees, 88 Fahrenheit in the air. That's 31. And so Jules Gunon back into the fight. Ben Barnicat leads by just 0.6 of a second. The 2 GTD Pro cars, the 2 yellow cars, 2 yellow and black cars actually. Front-engined V8 Lexus, the oldest of the GTDs in terms of when it made its debut, is battling against the youngest in this field, the mid-engined Corvette C8R, because that was never built as a GT3 car, it was built as a GTE, a GT Le Mans car, and indeed won its class in the final ever outing for those cars at Le Mans last year in the hands, among others, of Ben Keating. Ben committed to IMSA for next year because he doesn't want to drive a GT3 in the World Endurance Championship. He's going to be driving, if you missed this news, big news actually, last week. He's going to be driving for United Autosport in an LMP2 car. There'll be 2 United Autosports from the Anglo-American team, Richard Dean and Zach Brown. They're setting up a satellite operation in the States to do a twin-pronged.
That was his dad, was Anglo-American Racing.
Yeah, but that's very good. I'm pleased you noticed that, Jeremy. You say, very good. They're setting up a satellite operation even as we speak to have a twin-pronged attack at the big races in the USA. in LMP2. And Ben Keating, I'm sure, hoping that he can do well enough in the early part of the season to justify an entry for him to Le Mans in LMP2 to see if he can win that as well as his GT wins. Now, how long have we got left? Just on 66 minutes to go. So round about another 10 or 15 minutes to get to the end of this race.
Right. And those two leaders continue to pull away from Brian Sellers. Already got half a second a lap. Barnicle and Taylor pulling away from Sellers, who seems to weather the storm from Frederick Schandorf, who instead has those two Turner Motorsport BMWs to worry about. They're harrying him now for what is now 4th position on the road, second in GTD. And then a little bit farther back is Frankie Montecalvo, who's doing a nice middle stint here in that Vasser Sullivan Lexus, running 5th in GTD, and he is similar margin now for the last couple of 3 laps ahead of Catherine Legg than he was before, and she is definitely edging away from that battle led by Mikkel Grenier, which is pretty much, well, it is the rest of the field, or nose to tail behind Grenier. And very consistent lap times once again by our race leader, just around about 1 minute 46.0. Within a tenth or two. There was a 45.5 a little while ago, but settled into a pace now of around about 146-ish. As I say, that 45.7 last time around. The fastest lap of the race was a 45.0. That was set by Jordan Taylor.
Still the GTD fastest lap now in the hands of Turner Motorsport with a 1:45.585. I have to say, I didn't notice.
You did that right after the pit stops, actually.
All right, okay, thank you, Jeremy. Good spot. I was about to say I didn't notice when that happened, but Jeremy did. Thank you for that. Heart of Racing, battling with the 91 Porsche. Kai van Berlo and Marco Sorensen. Van Berlo, former Porsche Deluxe Carrera Cup front runner. And I've got 2 of them in here. Kai van Berlo, 2 of them this weekend, should I say, because in this race this weekend, because Seb Priaulx, who won the championship, is a little bit further up the field for AO Racing. And the Pro-Am champion as well, as Shay's just pointed out in my ear, from Porsche Carrera Cup North America, Alan Metni in this race as well. So that's proving to be good breeding ground for future talent. Side by side, AMG action coming to the top of the roller coaster. Winward Racing on driver's right, Kortuff on driver's left. That is the battle for 10th and 9th, and Phil Ellis has gone past Mick Grenier and taking it. Winward prevail, and here comes Klaus Bachler to join the battle as well. Behind him, Trent Hinman in the bright yellow number 77, and behind him is the Seb Priaulx driven AO racing car. That is Roxy this weekend. And Faf into the pit lane. Klaus Bachler, 1 hour and 2 minutes to go. Is that optimistic, Jeremy Shaw?
Well, clearly they think not, and I certainly wouldn't have bet against the strategists there at Faf Motorsports. They've won this race the last 2 years in a row, so they know how to win it. And of course, if there is a full course caution, this will play directly into this number 9 car's favour. Look, it was running back in the 11th position overall, so from that point, nothing to lose by them. They're not going to make an awful lot of progress from there, I don't think. So right now, this is their best opportunity to get a strong result.
Shea Adams watching the stop, and they've gone all in, Shea.
They did. Fuel and 4 tires, leaving Klaus Bachler behind the wheel. They did put a little bit of tape on the damage to the right front of that car. No change of a bumper, though, and that has triggered a bunch of other stops and a bunch of other people up on the wall ready to receive their cars. They will be coming in next lap around, too.
This may well set off a whole domino effect. Getting your last pit stop in first if there is a safety car, always seems to be the best thing to do. We've seen people charge through the field as other cars have to stop. And for the moment, I'm just talking. Here they come, here they come. Brian Sellers is the first to react. The leader in GTD, also Robbie Foley from second in GTD. Paul Miller and Turner have come to the pit lane. Shea Adam.
For Robbie Foley, it's going to be fuel and tires only. For Paul Miller, a driver change. Madison Snow started the race. He will also finish it. We saw this strategy deployed by them at Road America. It wound up in a victory. So Paul Miller Racing looking to do that again. Fuel and 4 tires for Madison. We also have the number 12 Lexus into the pit lane. Aaron Thielitz started this race. He will finish it. I feel like I just said that. It will be fuel and 4 tires for the Lexus. And also into the pits, the number 27 Heart of Racing Aston Martin. This is the GTD car. This one had the fuel flow sensor issue in the first stop. There's no way for them to address that, so expect to see potentially another penalty for them after this stop as well. They kind of had their heads down a little bit because of that. Fuel and 4 tires with Marcos Sorensen taking it to the checkered flag.
Number 12 car, Aaron Thielitz getting back aboard that car from Frankie Monticalvo, who's done his middle stint in this race.
And don't forget, we will see a driver. Not everybody will be doing driver changes here, but we know one car that will have a driver change. Oh, actually, no, we won't, because it's not going to come back in. Misha Goikberg, I was going to say, will hand back over, but of course we lost that car with its cutout problem early on. Very bizarre, the Lamborghini Huracan out of the race. Heavy impact at the top of the roller coaster. Before that, another heavy impact brought out the first full course yellow. That was the Kelly Moss Smith Riley David Bruley driven Porsche number 92. Both drivers fine, both cars a little the worse for wear. The pit stops continue. Should be the last pit stop for Corvette in this race. Jordan Taylor is in the lane with Shea Adam.
And he will be going back out the racetrack because he's taking the car to the flag. Oh, sticker Michelin tires going on that number 3 Corvette. A lot of fuel. 4 tires for them, by the way. 4 tires as well for the McLaren, which is doing its service right now. Frederick Schandorf getting an icy new drinks bottle. Also into the pit lane, we have Bill Oberlin. Of course, he's staying aboard in the number 97 Turner Motorsport BMW. 4 sticker tires for both he and Catherine Legg. Although, it looks like there's something going on because the driver's side door is open on the number 66 Acura. That is Sheena Monk. Drinks bottle change, but she is not getting back aboard that car, so that's just teammate being very useful to the teammate. Windward and Cawthorpe Mercedes both in the lane. Wow, Oberlin beats out McLaren. McLaren has to give way because they are in the transition lane. McLaren does not want to yield, and at the very last second gives way to Bill Oberlin, who now is in second, but we'll have to cede that position to his sister car. Cawthorpe came in, 4 tires and fuel. Windward came in, 4 tires and fuel. Wright came in, 4 tires and fuel. Everybody is ready for this one.
Looked like Catherine Legg has dropped behind Phil Ellis and Seb Prio as she went out of the pit lane. I'll confirm that as she goes through. Ben Barnicle leading the motor race in the number 14 Vassar Sullivan Lexus, but owes us a pit stop. Kai van Berlo, best of the GTD cars in the 91, the dark coloured Kelly Moss Smith Riley Porsche. And here comes the leader to the pit lane. This is the last of the pit stoppers now. Have they got this right? Or has the additional performance of the cars that stopped early and that new tyre performance, oh, that new tyre feel, is that going to cost them the lead? Hey, Shea Adam.
The crew jumps off the wall. They do the right rear and the left front tire change first as new Michelin's going on to both of those. Then they'll run around and do the opposite corners. The Corvette crew is watching the Lexus crew. I mentioned to Ben Barnicle earlier in our Countdown to Green how they have changed up how they do their pit stops. That was pretty quick. He said it was a necessity of a crew member on the sister car not actually being able to be here this weekend. Revving the engine is Ben Barnicle, waiting for the last little bit of fuel to go in. And he stalls it. He stalls it, leaving the box. They did not windshield on that. They were so focused on everything. Now Ben is out and rolling. Where is the Corvette? There's the Corvette. He's out, but the Corvette is up to speed. Jordan Taylor to the lead.
Goes round the outside into turn number 1. It was going to be close anyway, even if there hadn't been that little stutter. And the Corvette then takes the effective lead of the race. In fact, it is the lead of the race. And That's what we talk about, Jeremy, when we talk about that additional performance from the new tyres. 1 or 2 laps, even only on a 3¼ mile circuit. That's why it's so dangerous to stay out. There's the safety car implication, but also that extra performance from the car that stopped a lap or 2 earlier.
Yeah, I think without that stall, I think he would have been okay. But it cost him several seconds there, and maybe, I mean, it was certainly a great outlap, I think, there from the Corvette, which has been fast all race long. He knew what he had to do there, did Jordan Taylor. Takes the advantage of those fresh tyres, and he's got the lead now. And I don't think the Corvette's going to give it up. I really don't.
Well, what we've got is a fantastic 56 minutes or thereabouts. As the car came down off the jacks, the Corvette was already on the front straight, and Jordan Taylor sweeps to the lead as Ben Barnicat emerges from the pit lane and has turned that into, what, 3-4 second lead as they come round to complete the lap. Let's see as they come across the line. The line is at the end of the pit lane. There goes Jordan Taylor, a 1:45.4 for him. Ben Barnicat, 3.75 seconds. And the fastest lap of his race for Brian Sellers, who holds on to the GTD lead, 1:45.4. There's going to be a penalty for the Inception Racing number 70, working under the car while refueling. That is a no-no. It will be just a drive-through, and that is such a shame, Jeremy, for Inception Racing. They've driven and fought their way up into 3rd position. Shea Adam, what was going on there to get that penalty? That's an unusual one.
So what happened was we're doing the tire change, and the wheel nut came out of the gut and rolled underneath the car. One of the mechanics dove underneath the car to get it back. Johnny Knott saw that, calls a penalty. They were refueling. They had somebody underneath the car, and if they had dropped the car at that given time, would have squished their mechanic. That is an absolute no-no and a drive-through penalty.
And it's why all of the team members normally have an additional center lock wheel nut on their belts, and you just leave that on the ground and you pull the other one off and use the new one. It costs you a second, but it's not as much as a drive-through, and that has big implications in the Bob Aitken Award for this year, as Brendan Arebe and Sheena Monk are battling for that. And as I said, Jeremy, such a shame for Inception, because they have raced their way genuinely up to 3rd position in that McLaren.
Very, very true. It'd been a great run for them. I mean, they lost that 1 position on that pit stop in any case to the number 96 car of Robbie Foley. But yeah, it had been a great run, and that's going to be a major disaster for them. Of course, that's the car that currently lies 3rd in the points, 3rd in the points table. It's about 130 points behind the Aston Martin car number 27, but it's going to pick up a goodly amount of ground with that car in this race running down in 10th position, Marco Sorensen at the wheel.
In comes the Inception McLaren, and that front straight at the pit lane speed limiter will feel very long indeed for Fred Shandorf. Drop down to, I think, an 11th or 12th position. 14th overall, that's going to make him 11th, I think, in GTD. That's a big, big move. And our Porsche keys to the race in Michelin Countdown to Green. No penalties. Seems a small thing, but these are generally speaking in the pit lane. Any penalties that you get are safety related. It is one of the most dangerous parts of the racetrack, of course, when the cars are together. And particularly when you've got the mechanics working on them, and a lot of these rules, as that one that we've just heard Shea explain to us, that is very much safety related. And by the way, we always say thank you to our safety teams and course workers. Thank you to our pit lane team as well, and indeed all of our IMSA officials. They are outstanding in doing their jobs and keeping everybody safe, but also in giving us the information that we need, whether that's coming from race control, and I'll add Nate Siebert into that as well for the flow of information, and Lee Driggers, who passes us the statistical information, but also to Johnny Knotts and his hard-working pit lane team, always make themselves available. Are happy to have us ask them questions, and if they don't know the answer, and if they've got the time, they'll find out for us with a quick radio message. So thanks to all of our friends down there. It's like the big circus coming to town every couple of weeks, isn't it? That's why we love being on site. We'll see you all at Matul Patil Amon. So sorry that we can't be with you at Indianapolis. Was looking forward to that one this year. Madison Snow back into the #1 BMW. So at that last stop, Brian Sellers got out, Madison Snow got back in, and why not, Jeremy? Because the young man from Utah has proved his worth. My goodness me, for a non-pro driver, he's effectively a freelance IT specialist, consultant, and comes to the racetrack for a little bit of a release, and works 40 hours a week if he can, and then comes to the racetrack and plies his trade here as well, and doing a good job again, as his cat leg as well, it has to be said. Slow pit stop for that car. That's dropped them back a little bit.
Yeah, dropped back a lot way. I mean, running 8th before the round of pit stops, now in 13th, so it cost her 5 places for Catherine. But other than that, it's been a really, really strong run for that car. She's not giving up. She's right behind Marco Sorensen in the harder racing Aston car number 27, and currently lies second in points in GTD.
Just a couple of points on that. The 66 car needed to take a wee bit more fuel, I think, than the cars that came in at the time. That's what the team are saying. And also, Brian Sellers out of the car now, but he wasn't feeling great. So that's why Madison's back in to take that car at the end. To be honest, I'm not sure the pace of that car. This is no disrespect at all to Brian. He's one of the quickest drivers out there, but where Madison's come on in the last 18 months or so, that car is not going to suffer pace-wise at all. He was able to mix it for pace, at least over a single lap with the GTD Pros in qualifying, and a 1:46.6 last time around, but he's going to have to match Robbie Foley. He's got 4 seconds on him at the moment, and Robbie took about 4/10 of a second out of him last time. He's also got Phil Ellis and Aaron Thielitz running in the 45s and the high 46s, trying to close down on them. They're another 6 seconds or so further back behind Bill Oberlin. So that's about another 9 seconds further back. That battle for GTD, Jeremy, is heating up nicely.
Well, actually, Madison extended his lead last lap, in actual fact, but it's
yes, last
just
time
a little,
he did, time before he did.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. What I'm looking at also is that gap at the front of the field. It was 3.7 seconds on the lap after Barnicoat came out of the pit lane. He set a new fastest lap of the race, a new lap record a couple of laps ago, 144.916 for that Lexus. And each of the last couple of laps, he's pulled him in by 2 or 3/10 of a second. So we're going to have to watch that one at the front. Madison Snow last time around was, again, just a little bit quicker than Robbie Foley, who is edging, who is being caught just a tiny bit actually by a guy called Bill Oberlin, who's got a little bit of experience in BMWs.
Well, Shea Adam had remembered that Faf, the number 9 car, in 8th position at the moment, and Klaus Bachner was the first car to make its quote-unquote final pit stop. I think I said it was about an hour and 6 minutes when it came in. It will have spent a minute or so in the pit lane. She's been down to ask, are they going to be okay on fuel? And Shea, what is the answer to that? Because if they're okay on fuel, pretty much everybody should be okay on fuel.
Yep, they're good on fuel, so they're going to the end of this one. They are not worried at all.
Okay. Well,
that sounds about right.
it would have been just over an hour, wouldn't it, by the time they got back out again? And as Shea mentioned there, they were the first in. So that should mean we've got a proper fight to the finish. Fred Schandorf looking at the back of the Marco Sorensen-driven Harter racing car. This is the battle for 10th and 11th at the moment, and goes to the inside. Here he comes, makes the pass into the braking area at the top of turn 13 and into 14 at the roller coaster. Fred Schandorf then up into the top 10 in GTD.
Yeah, and on the previous lap, he motored past the other Aston Martin as well, of Alex Riberas, the GTD Pro car. So those Astons really struggling this weekend. They had that balanced performance streak. They lost some turbo boost, a good bit of horsepower, and that's costing them quite clearly here. The McLaren was a lot quicker on the straights there and able to make that pass pretty comfortably. Catherine Legg, by the way, also got past number 27 car a couple laps ago, so she's going to have to put her foot down to stave off that very, very quick McLaren. She is making some ground toward Trent Hinman. They're currently now in 12th position for Catherine Legg in that Gradient Acura.
Spot on 45 minutes to go now. So coming up to 2 hours having been completed. Jordan Taylor leads Ben Barnicat. Corvette ahead of Vassar Sullivan. 2.4 seconds is the gap at the front of the field. Aaron Telitz trying to chase down Winwood Racing's Phil Ellis. Is Winwood's look finally going to change? It had a reasonable run of results, but by no means what they were expecting. They were hoping to be championship challengers this year. Coming down through to the final corner now. Notice the drivers are taking a wee bit more curb now and trying to push the envelope, saving the cars perhaps as much as they were early on. Good news is that the little splash of rain that we had about 50 minutes ago has blown through, really wet the track. Just checking that the battles down through the field and see we're lapping in high 45s, low to mid 46s, Jeremy. That's a decent spread. Sorensen just outside of that on a 47.2 last time around, and Gilles Gounon on a 47 flat. Those are the two slight outliers there, but the rest of the field lapping in within round about a second from the high 45s to the mid to high 46s.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's the two Astons are certainly struggling though this weekend, and particularly so it seems in the race, with neither of them really making any forward progress at all, and losing positions here and there. We talked about the Woodward Mercedes. He's got Aaron Telitz, Phil Ellis does on his rear bumper, or 5-6 car lengths back perhaps. Telitz, that's the battle for 4th and 5th now, and they're losing ground just a little bit to Belobelin and, well, the 3 BMWs ahead of them, but only a tenth or two per lap. Meanwhile, the race leader, Jordan Taylor, lapping very, very consistently. High 45s primarily, 145.8 last time around, and pretty much the same times now for Ben Barnicat in that second place Lexus.
So where are the battles? Catherine Legg now just 3/4 of a second behind Trent Hinman. She's been taking 2 or 3 tenths, 4 tenths last time around out of the bright yellow Wright Motorsport Volt racing car. Former teammates there in 8th and 9th. And she's still pushing forward. There's a whole gaggle of Porsches ahead of her. 1, 2, 3, 4 Porsches ahead of her, and it's target acquired for Catherine Legg, former open wheel star, of course, still yet to fulfill her big dream of going to Le Mans and competing there. I have a suspicion she'll get there. If sheer force of will would do it, she would have been there already, to be honest. Great character.
Wasn't she going to drive a P2 car a couple of years ago? Was that when she had her accident?
She had the accident at Ricard and broke a leg. Quite a nasty injury, actually, but in typical Catherine Legg style, bounced back from that. Has become one of the, dare I say it, and she's going to punch me in the arm the next time I say this, but senior figures now in the IMSA paddock in terms of experience. I'm in trouble now, aren't I, for saying that? And in terms of experience, I say it there. Driven GT cars, fought for championships in that category, and is not only furthering her own career at the moment, but being instrumental, Jeremy, in mentoring and bringing on Sheena Monk over the last couple of seasons or so, and that's good to see as well.
It is, isn't it? And I remember when Sheena first started doing Lamborghinis, she had some coaching from Catherine, and is doing so again now. There's a nice move for Seb Priaulx, who'd been closing in on Klaus Bachler over the last several laps, and now makes that move for his 8th position overall.
Sorry.
So with Seb Priaulx there making his mark.
Yeah, Seb Priaulx there, the man from the Channel Islands, the Guernseyman, 4th generation racing driver, and went through past Klaus Bachler. I don't know whether Klaus is on a slightly different strategy. Remember, they pitted very early, so I don't think he made it that difficult for the other Porsche to go through. And so, as Seb went through, but as Seb went through, Seb obviously felt he'd been helped along. They just flashed his four-ways as he went through. 2 flashes of them, just as you would do out on the highway if somebody lets you in or into the traffic line. So a little bit of courtesy there from the 2 Porsche drivers. Hello to Andy and Joanne, Seb's parents, watching on from home. What a season, what a couple of seasons Sebastian has had, Seb. Where will he turn up next year? Multimatic contracted driver, Ford GT3s and GT4s next year as well, of course. Am I putting 2 and 2 together and making 5.0? Possibly, not sure about that, but he's certainly not doing himself any harm in getting this experience, more experience of the American tracks after being a champion in the Porsche Carrera Cup, the Deluxe Carrera Cup North America. Another young driver coming into the American Le Mans Series to make a career in this sport. Under 40 minutes to go now, Jeremy.
Yeah, indeed. And it's stalemate at the front there. Jordan Taylor and Ben Barnicat pretty much trading lap times. The leading Corvette saying about 2.4 seconds, 2.5 it was last time around between himself and the Lexus in 2nd position. And then they're edging away from Madison Snow at a rate of about 3 or 4 tenths of a second a lap on a pretty consistent basis. Yeah, for Madison Snow, Foley is staying around about the same. It's gone out by about a second over the course of the last 8 laps, so that's maybe a tenth or so a lap. Bill Oberlin's definitely getting a little bit closer to Robbie Foley, but now within 3.5 seconds. And then they're pulling away just slightly from Phil Ellis and Aaron Telitz to continue their battle. And now we'll see whether Seb Priaulx, having got past Klaus Bachler, can haul in that battle for 6th and 7th overall, 4th and 5th in GTD.
Behind Trent Hinman, Catherine Legg and Fred Shandov. In fact, Shandov's gone through, came up very quickly to the back of the Acura and has gone straight by. And the yellow Porsche just ahead of them is the next car up the road. Cat had been within 3/4 of a second of Hinman, dropped back to about 1.5 seconds. The Inception McLaren's gone through. Well, I hope it's not because Cat's either got a problem or is having to save fuel. A little bit of a mistake up at Oak Tree, I'm hearing. Catherine went a tiny little bit wide. Shandov needing no second invitation. Actually, probably didn't need a first invitation, knowing Fred. But a very, very fair driver. Catherine not being able to stay with that car, may have dirtied up the tyres a wee bit, and Chandov is closing on the Volt Racing Porsche. There's 4 Porsches from 8th in class up to Seb Prior in the bright pink, number 80 in 6th. Ah yes, because there's Klaus Bachler in there as well. I was just thinking my arithmetic didn't work there. So that's 8th overall to 11th overall are all Porsches. And Chandov gaining on them. Jordan Taylor for Porsche, for Corvette, will complete another lap. 2.6 seconds the lead last time around over Ben Barnicoat. Feels there's just a little bit of a holding pattern at the moment whilst everyone works out what performance they have in the tyres. They shouldn't have any fuel issues, That doesn't mean that they can go full rich to the end of the race though, Jeremy. And it might be that these drivers are just being asked to make a fuel number now so that they can turn things up for the last laps of the race.
Yeah, conceivably so, certainly. It's going to be interesting to see that, but remarkably consistent lap times from Jordan Taylor between 45.8 and 46.0 at last lap. All of the last 10 laps have been pretty much identical, so he's doing a really nice job. But each of the last 3 laps he's pulled away 1/10 of a second over Ben Barnicoat, but it's still only 2.7 seconds between first and second. So Barnicoat certainly not out of it yet with 35 minutes remaining in this race. And as you say, just maybe looking after things at this stage, and perhaps he can go for a charge later on. He has set the fastest lap of the race, has Ben Barnicoat, by less than a 1/10 of a second over the Corvette.
And we've got a car off the circuit. It's the Heart of Racing 23 Aston Martin. That's at NASCAR turn 3. NASCAR bend at turn 3. He's found the track again. I think there was a slight brush on the right-hand side. That was Alex Riberas. Uncharacteristic and very unusual mistake by Alex. Actually, I'm going to take that back. I don't think he did get all the way to the tyre barrier. Normally would have expected to see the right-hand mirror, which sticks out from the door just a little bit. It's a work of aerodynamic art, actually, the way that is on the door. You'd expect to see that wiped off if he'd got to the tyre wall. The V8 twin-turbo car. V8 turbo engine, pulling nicely down the back straight. Now, not the weekend, as I said earlier on, for either of those cars. He's dropped now back behind Marco Sorensen. And let's see, well, he was in traffic with his teammate as he came through. He's had a little bit of help, and it wasn't a lot, but it was just enough to put him onto the dirt. And then got a little bit of a swapper on where the front and the back decided where they were going without much input from Alex. And I think that was Mick Grenier in the Court of Motorsport AMG who came up the inside and just gave him a little bit of hip and shoulder. Again, tiniest of, nowhere near the sort of hit that we saw from the FAF Motorsport Porsche onto the back of the WeatherTech AMG earlier on, but just because of where it was, it's put him off the circuit. It all started back at turn 1 when Chandov went down the inside. That was a couple of laps previous to that, I think. And
that was a while ago.
Yeah, so Chandov had already been off on the circuit, but that was the same 2 cars. Actually, no, that was battling with Sorensen, that wasn't battling with the 23 car. So you're right, Jeremy, that wasn't the same incident. But the Korthoff car has got a little bit of grass in the gaping front air intake. New version of that car coming soon. The street car being shown recently, being announced recently. Right, before we get into the last half hour, let's pick up some driver interviews down in the pit lane. We haven't heard from drivers for a wee while. They're coming back to the pit lane now after their stints. Jack Hawksworth has taken the time to speak to Shea Adam over at Lexus.
All right, Jack, we've got a situation right now where you guys are P2. You don't need to win this race, but you want to. So how hard is Ben going to push?
Well, I mean, we want to win this race. Obviously, the guys who are fighting for the championship are leading at the minute, so he's going to give everything he's got. He'll never give up. Pretty frustrating way to obviously lose the lead, but yeah, we're going to keep fighting. I know Ben won't give up here. He's going to give it everything he's got. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe we get some rain, some weather, something like that. Guys have been mega all weekend. Ben's got his head down and he's getting after it now, so fingers crossed we can make something happen.
Gap's starting to close. Good luck.
Thank you. Cheers.
Lost that lead to Jordan Taylor earlier in the piece, and Jordan's just holding that gap around about 2.5 seconds at the moment. At IMSA Radio, hashtag Michelin PRT for our post-race tech. Questions, points arising. And with half an hour to go, Shea and Jeremy, I'm going to start you thinking, I'm not going to ask you yet, but I'm going to start you thinking about our BDO Nose Strategy Awards for the single team that you think have played their cards most effectively in terms of the strategic nature of this race. Not very many people have done anything tremendously funky. So I'll take your nominations in around about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll make a decision before the checkered flag. Lovely trophy, plus a donation to one of the IMSA charities of the choice of the team. Most recently, I noticed that Kelly Moss had nominated the Austin Hatcher Foundation to take their allocation. It's a lovely thing for Andy and Victoria to do. And thank you to BDO, not only for supporting our teams and supporting IMSA, but also the IMSA charities as well, with the BDO Nose Strategy Award. Hindman and Schandorf, let battle commence, Jeremy, as they go through a dust storm up towards turn numbers 11 and 12. I think that would have been the FAF car ahead of them who was throwing up all of that dirt. Klaus Bachler.
Who'd just been overtaken by Van Berlo. So Van Berlo up to 9th position. Klaus Bachler losing his 2nd position in the last 6 laps. And there goes Trent Hindman as well, I think, doesn't he? Or was that the way around?
That was Schandorf drafting and powering by with that McLaren.
Right.
Made that look very easy indeed. The McLaren 720S GT3 Evo, to give it its full title. That is a very sleek and very quick machine. Perhaps not had the representation or indeed the success down through the years that their products might have expected from their products here in IMSA, but Inception have been a long time exponent and customer and have stuck with the brand, helped them develop 1 or 2 of the cars as well over here. And paying off today with Fred Schandorf. Has been quick every time he's been in that car. Up to 8th in class now, and I have a suspicion that 3.5 seconds between him and Klaus Bachler will disappear very quickly indeed, because he was a second quicker on the last lap, even accounting for the pass that he made, Jeremy.
Yeah, indeed so. I mean, he's been one of the quickest cars on track all the way through this race, as Fred Schandorf. Without that penalty, he'd be right up at the, well, he was right up at the sharp end in 2nd position after that round of the earlier round of pit stops. So he's certainly got a fast car, and he's making up somewhat for that penalty, but he's not going to get back up toward the sharp end again. But I think he'll make short work of Bachler, who really seems to be struggling of late.
Just letting letting us know from race control that tap from the court of AMG pushed the Aston Martin from Heart of Racing off, was reviewed. No action from race control. Coming down to 26 minutes remaining. I just wonder, Jeremy, what effect that big hole in the front of Klaus Bachler's car is having on the Motul driveway Porsche from FAF. It can't be aerodynamically efficient, so it's probably dragging him back just a little bit. And I just wonder if there was any other damage sustained there at the front end, because there's not enough time here to redo casters, cambers, or string the car up and look at how the suspension is set up around here. So if it did, they're just going to have to live with it, aren't they?
They are, yeah. Not much they can do about it at this stage in the game with 25 minutes remaining. So no, that's it. Do the best he can with it, and look, he's in a pretty comfortable third position in the class, this Klaus Bachler. I don't think they've got any danger of well, they haven't really got any danger at all, unless something goes drastically wrong, of being caught by the Aston Martin, which is clearly struggling for pace. And of course the Mercedes, WeatherTech Racing, is a couple of laps behind after that earlier problem that they had. So they're looking at third position.
Which was caused by that car.
Which was caused by that car. Good point. Good point. I'm just looking at the leaders again. I talked about Jordan Taylor being incredibly consistent at the front of the field, doing high 45s. Last 3 or 4 laps have been in the 46s, mid 46s at that. But Ben Barnicus has slipped into a similar pace as well. So that's curious to see.
Shea Adam has been talking to the FAF team about that number 9 car, and can add to what we were talking about there, Shea. Do they have a problem? Is Klaus struggling?
Well, yes, he is, because he's got a hole in the right front of the car, and that has eliminated all of the downforce that the car naturally produces on that edge of the car. So it's not that the tires are wearing in any particular way, it's just that the car itself can't produce what it's meant to.
I mean, these are GT3 cars, and people will be saying, hang on a minute, these are near showroom stock cars. Well, they aren't. They are designed and absolutely conceived as racing cars that look vaguely like their road-going cousins. And downforce on a GT3 car is very much a part of the performance equation. And to lose a lump of the front end of that car, and worse still actually, to airflow going through that front bumper area and through the splitter instead of around the front wheel and being managed around and through the car and under the car. That's what's going to be giving Klaus his problems. We've talked in the past about how much difference the very tiny, 1.5 to 2-inch rubber strip that is on the bottom of the 911 Porsche Carrera Cup cars, and how much difference that makes if it gets pulled off with a run through a gravel trap or the grass. And I've seen people completely run through a set of tyres in 3 or 4 laps and be 5 or 6 seconds a lap off the ultimate pace with those cars. Well, it's the same. You can't lose that amount of bodywork without having a problem. Hello to Colette Godfrey, who's listening in at the moment. Another fan of IMSA racing. Not sure where you are, Colette, in the world at the moment. Thank you for spending some time. Colette is another Catherine Legg fan. She's up in Canada, Clarington, Ontario. Thank you, Colette, for your tweet to us at IMSA Radio. Don't forget the hashtag Michelin PRT. Checkered flag ends the race. Before he starts our conversation, we'll run through your points arising, any questions you've got about anything you've seen this weekend or IMSA racing in general. Well, about 15 minutes ago, Shea Adam, I said to start thinking about our BDO nose strategy nominations. Who have you come up with? Just one for this one. So, what have you got and why?
Corvette Racing, they got to the lead of the race by pitting before the 14 Lexus and doing a stop that was slightly faster. So clearly they know something about racing.
Yeah, I'll give you that. That was the performance potential, Jeremy, that we talk about, and getting the tyres up the temp and coming through. No strategy award, the BTO award, Jeremy. What are you looking at throughout the 19 cars that started, 17 remaining?
I've got to agree with Shay. I mean, no one's tried anything particularly different in this race. Pretty much everybody's running the same sort of strategies. I mean, they come in within a lap or two all the way through the race. So, but that stop coming in a lap soon has certainly helped and has given opportunity. Of course, it was helped even more when Ben Barnick had stalled the car leaving the pit lane. But look, there's been nothing else to my mind that's been particularly striking during this race. The Turner Motorsport BMWs, certainly they made up ground during each of the pit stops. So something certainly, whether that was pit work or whether that was in and out laps, I don't really know because it's hard to say. But the only other option for that BDO No Strategy award for me would be Turner Motorsport for both of their cars, which made up ground during each of the rounds of pit stops. Certainly the first one.
In a 2 hour and 40-minute race, all right, we've had a couple of safety cars, one of them quite long for the clear-ups, actually both of them quite long for the clear-ups. Well done to the safety teams for getting it done so quickly, because they were quite major incidents. This has been, Jeremy, a race where very small differences have made the difference, and just that lap or extra couple of laps to get the Michelin tyres up the temperature, and Jordan Taylor doing his bit coming out, Antonio Garcia doing his bit going in, and yes, there was a little fumble by Vassar Sullivan, but there wasn't from Corvette. So the strategy call was right, and then they executed, and that's all you can do, Jeremy, from the wall, on the pit lane, and indeed in the car.
Completely agree, and that's why I concur with that call.
Well, we'll confirm that in a few minutes or so. We've still got 20 minutes to go, but leading the way at the moment, Corvette Racing in our BDO Nose Strategy Award, and they are race at the moment. That is the other thing. 3 seconds, been hovering around 2.5, 3 seconds for quite some time. We've been green flag racing for a tad under an hour at the moment. Shouldn't have said that, should I? Hashtag blame Hindhoff, obviously, if it all goes horribly wrong. Shea Adam was in my ear almost before I'd said that.
What we could do with something like that to liven things up, because there's not a lot going on. It's pretty much stalemate all the way through the field. The only guys that are making any progress really is Seb Prio, who is closing on Aaron Telitz and is now within a second of the number 12 Lexus in Roxy, the best places of the Porsches in this race. Done a really nice job, actually. And the other guy who's making progress, of course, is Frederick Schandorf, who has, I think, just got past Klaus Bachler, so up inside the top 10 again overall for the Inception Racing McLaren.
Yeah, there's another team who have done their jobs to the best of their ability. And as I said, there's been, Jeremy's quite right to say there's not been much in it. Madison Snow leads GTD. Let's not forget about Paul Miller Racing. Brian Sellers doing yeoman's work in the middle of the race whilst not feeling very well. Madison called on to finish the race. 7 seconds the gap now to Robbie Foley, and that's gone out since Madison got in the car. It's not been huge amounts. It's been a 10th here, 2 tenths there, couple of more tenths the next time around, but he's built up a decent gap now, Jeremy.
Indeed so, yes, he has. He's pretty comfortable there, and all 3 BMWs are separated by kind of a similar sort of range, 4, 5, 6 seconds between each of them. So for a while there, Bill Oblin was closing a bit on Robbie Foley. That's no longer the case. The gap it's been about 4.5 seconds. Well, it's 4.5 seconds on lap 53 between the two Turner Motorsport BMWs, and here on lap 70 it's the same. So they're running very, very equal pace. And Robbie Foley, boy, he's just learned so much from Bill Oblin. He'll be thrilled with his performance here. He saw Bill perhaps for a little while. He got within 3.4 seconds. He closed in a second or so, and he's weathered that storm and just put his head down and driven another excellent race for the young New Jersey man.
Yeah, and our Porsche keys to the race: stay out of the penalty box. Generally speaking, the guys at the front of the field have managed to do that. Track position, I think, probably has played a bigger part than anything else here. It hasn't been door-to-door, wheel-to-wheel style racing, but it is still, for me, fascinating to see the relative pace of these cars. And in some ways, you might almost say, Jeremy, that the guys who do the BOP have done such a good job. It is exceptionally hard to make up any ground. If you lose a little bit in the pits, if you get caught up behind someone as you're on your in lap or your out lap, or you don't get your tyres warmed up the right way on the out lap, no tyre warmers here, it's exceptionally difficult, even with these good drivers and even with a relatively low traffic density, to actually make up any time.
True that, yes, no question about it. The only criticism there perhaps is that the Aston Martin certainly appear to be put out of the game all of a sudden here. I mean, they brilliant performances to win each of the last two races, and this weekend they've been absolutely nowhere. And yeah, they took about I think it was nine the BOP change. It was 9 kilowatts, I think, which is 12 horsepower or so, that's a lot, isn't it?
Two Porsches having a battle, and this is for overall position. Trent Hinman and Klaus Bachler. Klaus solidly in a podium position in GTD Pro. Trent in 9th position in GTD, 11th and 12th overall. So a little bit of Porsche honour here as they come out of the Oak Tree corner.
Yeah, he's really struggling against Klaus Bachler.
Yeah. Can't get the front end of that car turned, and that damage on the right front has really hamstrung their race. Ran into the back of the WeatherTech Racing Mercedes hard enough to have that car come into the pit lane with damage to the left rear bodywork, which was catching on their Michelin tyre, and hasn't really helped the Porsche either. I meant to ask you, Shea, actually, when the right car came in, was there any thought of them changing that front bumper, or is it not the bumper that's damaged, if you see what I mean?
When Faf came in, you mean, yes, there was thought of it beforehand. They got a new bumper ready, but when they came in to do the service, there wasn't time enough, and they didn't want to delay the car any further, so they did not do any work to the car.
I think they might be rethinking that now, to be honest. More dust on the exit of NASCAR Bend, as the pass has been made by the bright yellow Volt Racing Trent Hinman driven Porsche, and immediately he pulls out 4, 5, 6, 10 cars lengths and heads up the climbing S's through the snake and up to turn 7 at the front of the field in that little ebb and flow. It is Ben Barnigan. He's just closed in half a second maybe on the Corvette that leads, and we've been green for such a long time now that before the end of this race, and we've still got 12.5 minutes to go, I'm just looking to see whether they might actually catch some traffic. It's Alex Riberas and Jules Gounon who they'll catch first, but I don't think they're going to, no. They're just coming out of turn 4 now, whilst Alex Riberas is coming out of Oak Tree. So about a third of a lap between them. Madison Snow continues to lap very consistently indeed. 47.0 last time around. He was again just 3-4 tenths quicker than Robbie Foley. That lead, which was up over 8 and then came down a bit, now back out to 7.7 seconds. That's the battle for first, second and third, with Bill Oberlin in the GTD category. Will Turner's cars second and third. Did they get tacos for that? on the podium. I think that's some kind of success, worth celebrating. Hashtag Michelin PRT for your questions. Points arising, either from this race or from the weekend as a whole, or something more generally IMSA. As we look forward now to the last 2 races of the season as we're moving into the closing stages here. Indianapolis, Battle on the Bricks, nighttime race, at least into the gloaming for Michelin Pilot Challenge, and then the main race on Sunday. And then, of course, 5 days of action. 4 days of action, excuse me, because it's Wednesday to Saturday, of course, for Motul Petit Le Mans. We've got some special programmes for that, and full coverage, of course, of the championship finales that are always involved at that event, not just for IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship, Pilot Challenge, Idemitsu, Mazda MX-5s. They'll be deciding their champions as well, I'm sure, at that event. And plenty of excitement in terms of extra drivers. Jenson Button coming to drive a Porsche GTP at Motul Petit Le Mans. We've got Lawrence Vanto in a prototype as well, in one of the Penske Porsches. Oh, and just a small matter of a double IndyCar champion and the reigning Indy 500 champion, as well as Joseph Newgarden, will be driving one of the Penske prototypes as well, the Porsche Penske Motorsport 963 Porsches. And that's just what was announced last week.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? It's great to hear these news stories heading into Petit Le Mans. A couple of guys are definitely making some moves right now. Phil Ellis, number 57, Winward. Mercedes is certainly getting closer to Bill Arbelin, who in turn is getting closer to Robbie Foley. Just over the last 3 or 4 laps, the gap has gone from a pretty stable 5 seconds between the two BMWs to about 3.6, and Robbie Foley has fallen back to all of a sudden now 9 seconds behind behind Madison Snow. So I don't know whether Robbie's struggling a little bit or what, but Phil Ellis is certainly getting closer to both of those two. In addition, Frederick Schandorf has now caught up with Kai van Berlo. I'm pretty sure pretty soon is going to go through into 7th place. I don't think there's going to be much that Kai can do about that. Seb Priaulx, however, running comfortably the best of the Porsches, is holding on to what seems to be a pretty comfortable 8th position overall at the moment.
2.5 seconds the lead. The Inception McLaren then, as Jeremy mentioned, has its next target in sight. And it is the Kai van Berlo Kelly Moss Porsche. He's going to clean that up pretty easily, I reckon. Seems to have a lot more performance. And these tyres have been on for everybody over an hour now, about an hour and 6 minutes, an hour and 7 minutes. So plenty of laps on them now. The Michelin tyres are very good, very durable. But of course, different configurations of car and different driving styles will do different things to the overall tyre wear and the balance between the tyre wear front and rear, and indeed left and right. This is a predominantly right-handed circuit, a clockwise circuit, so you would expect the left-hand tyres to have more of the work. But depending on your driving style, the fronts or the rears might be getting a little tired. The problem is the grip changes. You have to change your driving style. You can't just brake and turn in at the same place every time. And that's part of the skill, Jeremy, isn't it, of being consistent. That's one of the things that impresses me about Madison for a non-full-time driver, Madison Snow's lead GTD. It's about assessing what those changes are throughout the tyre stint and the fuel stint. The car's getting lighter, but the tyre performance is changing, the balance of the car is changing. And that's a real skill, to keep doing that and to keep your lap times roughly similar within a tenth or two.
That's right, and it is an absolute art and super important for drivers who are running, well, anywhere in the field. That if you can run consistent fast pace out front, then you're going to be hard to catch. And it's certainly interesting to me that the pace of Jordan Taylor, I mean, he did about a dozen or more laps within a tenth or two of a second in the high 45s. Now he's running mid 46s, as is Ben Barnicoat. So they've both dropped off about a half a second of pace at around about the same time, and maintained that all the way through the last 10, 15 laps or so. So that's really interesting to see that. Meanwhile, Phil Ellis is absolutely charging, and is now right with the Bill Oberlin BMW, and the Inception McLaren is closed right up on Kai van Berlo too. So two battles there to watch as this race enters its final 6 minutes now.
Yeah. And a late pit stop for Jules Kuhn on there, a couple of laps off the lead after that damage early on, having been hit by the Pfaff Porsche. 8 seconds of fuel is what Shea Adam saw going in there. And that car back out with Jules behind the wheel. I think probably a tale of what might have been. Meanwhile, Fred Schandorf continues to give us something to talk about. Well done, Fred. Thank you very much. Coming down the hill now through the roller coaster.
Really interesting to see how much it closed in on the Porsche under braking at the top of the hill there, didn't it? It's a good bit lighter.
Yeah. I think that's grip as well, though, Jeremy, isn't it? Because it's, you know, everybody thinks, oh, you know, if you've got more grip in a car, then it's going to help you through the corner and off the corner. But it helps you everywhere. It helps you under braking. It helps you turn the car. The car feels more dynamic. You can point the car in a different place. You can place the car in a different place and get on the throttle earlier as well. Coming to turn 3, this one's heating up. The number 91 Porsche, the dark grey machine with Kai van Berlo. Now he's raced in Porsche Carrera Cup, so he knows all about close racing. Coming through to start the climb up the hill. Schandorf looks fairly confident. He's been very decisive. I'll give him that, Fred, in his passes. This one is going to be a little bit harder. Now up through the climbing S's. Van Berlo dropping the right Michelins off the side of the road as he comes through the south bend at turn 10. Just throws a little bit of dust up into the windscreen of the McLaren, closing in through turns 11 and 12. Nice little battle this. Nice to see the relative strengths and weaknesses of the two different cars. Mid-engine McLaren, bit of moving left and right by Van Berlo, trying to dissuade Schandorf from having a go one way or the other, but he's in the draft now. He'll go to driver's left. That'll give him the advantage for the first part of the roller coaster, but my goodness, Van Berlo very late on the brakes.
That was very interesting, John, wasn't it? Because the Porsche got a really good jump off Oak Tree Turn there, but then towards the end of the straight, the McLaren was definitely closing in, but then the Porsche, that time, very, very good on the brakes, because Van Berlo doesn't want to give up that position, so he fought super hard there, left his braking as late as he possibly could.
I don't think this
defend
one's
the
over,
inside
though.
line is turn 1 too, isn't he?
Is it going to be the old over and under? Oh, I don't think it needs to be. Schandorf's got enough grip to go around the outside, but then Van Berlo holds tight to the right-hand side, the inside. He's back in front again. Oh, thank you so much, guys. 2.5 minutes to go. Very wide exit from turn 3. Schandorf's got way more grip. He has got way more grip. He used, what, a car and a half's less exit from turn 3 there. And that tells you, Jeremy, all you need to know about how that McLaren has been and how Fred has been in looking after his Michelin tyres in the last hour and 10 minutes or thereabouts.
Yeah, very much so, and just a little bit farther up the road from them, Phil Ellis ditto, because he's closed in on Bill Oberlin. He's right behind him now, and the two of them have closed in also on Robbie Foley. So there's only a couple of seconds now between Foley and Oberlin, two Turner Motorsport BMWs, with the second of them under attack from Phil Ellis's Mercedes.
Little mistake there from the Porsche driver, Van Berlo. He went a little too wide that time, and again, that's the problem. Got a little slide on, and that's all Schandorf needed. Got alongside, now gets in front and takes that position. 7th in GTD, 9th overall It's taken 3 laps and it's given us some entertainment, but fantastic stuff at the end of the race. And this is what long green flag racing gives you. There are drivers out there with completely different cars underneath them than when they came out of the race an hour and almost 20 minutes to go. Now, meantime, Phil Ellis is right with Bill Oberlin, and here we go between these two front-engine cars through turn number 3. Now, Bill Oberlin is not particularly backwards and coming forwards, but he can't hold back Phil Ellis. That was a super manoeuvre, like a hot knife through butter. And Phil Ellis moves up, and that is a podium position for Winward Racing. Have they turned their bad luck around? What a brilliant drive by Ellis.
Indeed so. At the track, of course, where they scored their most recent win last year. So it's been a really good run for him. And Bill Oberlin, having passed Bill Oberlin, Robbie Foley is now just 2.2 seconds up the road. So the both of them have been closing on Robbie. Is there something to come there in the closing stages? Meanwhile, just looking at the battle for the lead, all of a sudden, having been around about 3 seconds, it's now half that. It'll be white flag this time around. He's not close enough.
I suppose, Jeremy, from the pit wall, they say now, right, whatever you've got left, put it out there. There's no point in coming back with any potential performance left in the car in terms of your fuel numbers or your tyre wear. So if there is anything for Ben Barnicat, he's going to leave it out on the track. He's not going to get struck out looking, is he? He is going to have a swing at this, even if it's a swing and a miss. 2.5 at the line. In GTD Pro, it's now a very impressive 11.5 seconds from Madison Snow back to Robbie Foley, and just under 3 seconds from Phil Ellis to Robbie Foley for second. Can that Mercedes do that? I can't imagine it will. Further back down, Fred Schandorf has got 4 seconds to Seb Prior, whose pace has just eased after a good middle part of the race. But there's been some good drives out there, some thoughtful driving, some proper endurance driving. I know that this is only a 2-hour and 40-minute race, but the extended green flag periods, Jeremy, have made people have to drive this like a longer race in some respects.
It's been an interesting race, certainly. It hasn't been as exciting as perhaps we would have hoped. A problem for the Lexus leaving its pit stall, I think, perhaps robbed us of a closer battle between these two, because once they'd got themselves both up to speed, the Corvette was about 3 seconds ahead, and it's pretty much maintained that for most of the rest of the way. But just a couple of corners to go now for Corvette Racing, looking at that team's second win of the year.
And Michelin rubber being laid down. Shea Adam is with the team, and across the line to win the Michelin GT Challenge at VIR. Corvette Racing, Jordan Taylor and Antonio Garcia. Shea Adam is with the team.
Coming into this weekend, they were already the only duo in GTD Pro who had won this category at VIR. So this is just even sweeter for them. And for Antonio, it's a very sweet victory because it's his 4th year. I wonder what he's going to do with all those Michelin men teamed up together in his trophy cabinet. Just got to sneak over the wall and grab him coming down the stairs. Antonio, 4 times a winner at VIR. Do you wish every race could be held here?
No. It's really, really good after what happened on Road America with 10 to go. So, yeah, Jordan today was like a switch clock. Like, yeah, really, really proud of Corvette. Another strategy to put pressure on them, and yeah, he did an amazing job. So, yeah, very, very cool.
Congratulations.
It's our GTD Pro winners, Jordan Taylor in the car, and Antonio Garcia did his job at the start of the race. So they're finding form. They were quick at Road America, but didn't make the end of the race. Antonio Garcia has never won Petit Le Mans. Are we working towards that? The 2 class winners together as they head up the hill. Madison Snow and Brian Sellers winning for Paul Miller Racing in GTD. Let's give you the unofficial results. GTD Pro cars 1st and 2nd. Corvette and Vassar Sullivan separated by 2 seconds at the end. And Klaus Bachler for Pfaff Motorsport fighting a rearguard action well down the overall, but still gets on the podium GTD Pro. In GTD, Madison Snow and Brian, as I said, Brian Sellers for Paul Miller Racing, Turner Motorsport, and their number 96 car in second place. Phil Ellis with a great drive at Winward Racing, started by his team boss, I suppose you could say. They'll be on the podium as well. And a shout out for Fred Schandorf and Inception as well, after a pit lane penalty, coming through with pace and decisive overtaking to take 7th. Shea Adam with more happy drivers.
With the man whose name is over the door, because for Paul Miller Racing, none of it would exist without Paul Miller. Paul, congratulations. No one has ever won 5 races in a season in GTD until your team. How great does this feel?
It's amazing. It's really wonderful. I've just given everybody a hug on the team, and it's wonderful. It's an unbelievable record. So we've never won anything like that. We've never won more than 1 or 2 races in a season. So it's crazy.
Congratulations to you guys, and by my count, unofficial sprint champions. All you need to do is start Indy, so you're the first ones to go back-to-back on that as well. Congrats.
Is that right? Really? No kidding. I hadn't even thought about that.
It's time for a bit more champagne for this team that knows how to spray it really well.
That is the truth, Shea Adam. Very well done for Paul Miller Racing. That is some statistic. 5 race wins on the season. They have been champions before, but even in their championship winning season, they didn't manage that, Jeremy. I know you've been doing a little bit of arithmetic. By the way, we can confirm that Corvette Racing, for their last pit stop strategy and what many people call the undercut, it was perfectly timed, it was perfectly executed. That took them to the overall and class lead, and that wins them the BDO Nose Strategy Award. Jeremy's been doing some arithmetic and will give us the championship standings.
Yeah, in GTD Pro then, Jack Hawksworth and Ben Barnacle left their lead trimmed just a little bit here this weekend, but it's still been another great day for Lexus Racing and Vassar Sullivan Racing. They'll lead now by 144 points unofficially going into the final couple of races of the season. And into 3rd place now, actually, will be the FAF Porsche, moving ahead of the WeatherTech Mercedes.
Well done, Jeremy. Let's take it. Sorry, go ahead.
Excuse me. Well, just quickly then, in GTD, again with that magnificent 5th win of the season for Brian and Madison, in particular, with the problems for DeAndres and Marco Sorensen, who finished right down towards the tail end of the field. That gap has now ballooned out to 375 points between 1st and 2nd. The Aston Martin team will remain 2nd, but a long, long way behind.
Let's get down to Shea Adam, who is in the victory lane. Brian Sellers congratulating his teammate, and Madison with his family there. His mum, Mel Snow. Big supporter, of course, of his driving. Shea down in the pit lane, taking in some of the atmosphere.
Yeah, we'll be able to chat with him in just a second. Gonna let our colleagues at NBC get in with a quick chat with him first. So I'm gonna head over and see if we can grab Jordan Taylor, because he had quite the victory celebration coming back around on that last lap. The guy who's won more races than anyone else in the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. This is number 26 for Jordan. It never gets old, and his celebration is very well practiced by this point. But it's kind of a cool thing when you win at VIR, isn't it? You get the Michelin Man Trophy. How hard were you pushing on that lap coming out of the pit lane?
Yeah, I mean, every lap, pretty much that whole race was pushing, even on the first cycle, just to close the gap to the Lexus to see if we could make them make a mistake. So when the yellow came out, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And those guys restarted really strong. So out of it, but yeah, the guys made an amazing call to kind of short fill, get us out front track position-wise, and then it was just down to saving fuel, managing tires, and managing the gap. So I was glad. I was counting down the laps from about 25 to go, so I was very happy to see that checker flag.
We talked about it earlier in the weekend. The main goal is to get as many wins for Corvette Racing as you can. This is one down. You look forward to Indy and Petit. You still got 2 big races.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely emotional. Like, I almost just started crying right there when I was talking about it. So it's been an amazing run. This one's definitely for all the Corvette racing fans out there. You know, since the announcement came out, the outpouring of fans from the Corvette side has been the best part. Just the appreciation and respect of my decision to move away. But, you know, Corvette will always be my family no matter where I am, what I drive, or what I do. So, yeah, deep in my heart, I'm a Corvette guy.
Is this the best car for burnouts?
I asked for a big burnout, but we didn't have enough fuel, so they owe me one.
We'll have to get him the next time. Congrats.
Thank you.
Great interview, Shea. Well done. Well, there is the answer to the question and confirms our nomination for Corvette. Short fill for track position. Also, that was one of our Porsche keys to the race. So worthy winners of our BDO Knows Strategy Award. Let's see if we can pick up the drivers now from Paul Miller Racing. We heard from the boss. Let's hear from them before we wrap up our race show and head to Michelin Post-Race Tech. Shea?
Oh, the confetti cannons have just gone off in the background, and that's riled up the fans once again. And it certainly is going to get this duo going, because this is their win of the season. They've never won more than 2 races together in a year. Now they've blown that out of the water by quite some. And just a fun fact, their first win together after Madison's first pole was here in 2016. The winner in the GT category, Jan Magnussen and Antonio Garcia. So clearly, when Corvette racing does well, this duo tends to do well too. Madison and Brian just finishing TV obligations. Let's see if I can dive in here with our championship leaders. For these two guys, it's been an unbelievable season. And Madison gave a lot of credit to the crew earlier today, rightfully so. And now they've got a massive gap on the rest of the field, as well as unofficially having clinched the sprint championship.
Yeah, it'll actually depend on how many cars turn up for the final race of the sprint championship. If there's as many cars as we had today, then it would be clinched. In fact, if there's one more, all they would need to do is start. But if there's 2 more, then they would need to finish 1 more position ahead of that. We don't actually yet quite know how many cars will be at Indy, John, do we? We think there might be perhaps a few more than we have here this weekend.
All right, Madison, 5 wins on this season. You got to start and finish. What was it like at VIR today?
I mean, today was awesome. Yesterday was definitely hot. That was a struggle in qualifying. The track was definitely hard to drive. Today, I mean, I think the weather was awesome, especially, I mean, in the car, but especially for the fans as well.
Congrats, you got a cool Michelin Man trophy.
Thank you.
So our winners' interviews, wrapping things up here at VIR and the Michelin GT weekend, with great racing yesterday and today. Tactics won out today for Corvette, and enforced effectively driver change from Madison Snow to be the closer. That's just about it from us. Thank you to Jeremy Shaw and to Shea Adam, and particularly to our hard-working camera operators and ups. Stay with us on RS2 IMSA Radio. It's Michelin Post-Race Tech next, and then we're back on the air for more IMSA action. The Battle on the Bricks from Indianapolis is our next live coverage from IMSA and the WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. I'm John Hindorf. Thanks for being with us on Sunday night. Stay with us for Michelin Post-Race Tech. Wins for Corvette and Paul Miller Racing this weekend. Bye-bye.